Chapter 1396. Thanks to Elder Huafeng's enthusiastic help, the Immortal Water Mausoleum received the news immediately. Jianghu rushed to the school as fast as he could. Wuxia College was in a critical period and was heavily guarded. No one could enter or leave as they pleased. According to Elder Bo Yan, they should have sent Jiang Ji1 out of the school and let the Jiang family pick her up from Fang State City. However, considering that the matter was blown out of proportion and would be bad for the school's reputation, they let her in. Of course, only Jiang Hetian was allowed to enter the school. The rest of the Jiang family who came with him were all kept out of the barrier. Jiang Hetian felt deeply humiliated, but with the matter at hand, he couldn't care less. In a hall in the school. As soon as Jiang Hetian entered, he saw several elders seated. His precious daughter, Jiang Ji1, was standing alone in the middle of the hall. The atmosphere was stagnant and seemed to be freezing. Jiang Hetian's heart sank. This atmosphere was enough to explain too many things. Jiang Hetian of the Immortal Water Mausoleum greets the elders. He suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and bowed politely as usual. Hearing the voice, Jiang Ji1 trembled and slowly turned around. The father and daughter looked at each other. Jiang Hetian's heart trembled violently. Because the current Jiang Ji1 was too haggard and disheveled. Her face, neck, and even wrists were clearly marked with scars. Her bright, watery eyes were bloodshot and even a little sluggish. There were dark circles under her eyes, and it was obvious that she didn't sleep well. Ziyuan. Jiang Hetian's heart ached. He hurried a few steps to Jiang Ji1's side. You. What happened to you? Seeing his anxious face, Jiang Ji1's nose twitched, and she couldn't help but cry. Father. I'm sorry. Her reaction made Jiang Hetian even more worried and nervous. He patted her shoulder lightly and whispered a few comforting words. Don't worry, I'll definitely uphold justice for you this time. As he spoke, he took a step forward and cupped his hands at the elders present. Elders, if you want to remove Ziyuan's name, you should at least give a reason, right? What's going to happen to her in the future? In the message that Wuxia College had sent to him, they had only mentioned that they would be expelled, but they had not explained the reason. This was what puzzled him the most. He knew that not long ago, Wei Shiping's name had also been removed. However, everyone knew the reason. Even now, Wei Shiping did not have the face to return to the Qinggupa family way. But when it came to them, how could they be so muddle-headed? He had to get an explanation. Elder Huafeng smiled. Patriarch Jiang, it must have been hard for you to come all the way here. Why don't you sit down and talk? Jiang Hetian refused. I won't be sitting. Elders, if you have something to say, just say it. He was so angry that he didn't even want to give her any face. However, Elder Huafeng didn't care about this at all. He nodded and did not continue to persuade him. Patriarch Jiang, to be honest, it's because we want to save some face for you and the Immortal Water Tomb that we didn't announce the reason. If you must know, why don't you ask Jiang Ji1 yourself? Jiang Hetian's heart sank when he heard this. The other party's attitude was so calm. Could it be that Jiang Ji1 really did something wrong? Oh, right, there's something that you might not know yet. Elder Huafeng reminded him. Before she was expelled, Elder Danqing took the lead in severing his master-disciple relationship with her. These words were undoubtedly adding insult to injury. Jiang Hetian was originally full of anger, but when he heard these words, he couldn't help but feel a little suspicious. He looked at Jiang Ji1 suspiciously. Ziyuan, what's going on? Jiang Ji1 knelt on the ground with a plop. Father. I was just confused for a moment. Please help me beg the elders and master. I don't want to leave the academy. I can't be expelled. Her tearful appearance made Jiang Hetian's remaining half of his heart turn cold. If you don't want to say it, this old man will. Elder Danqing, who had been silent, finally spoke. His gaze slowly swept over Jiang Ziyuan's body. His tone was calm, as if he was just talking about an unimportant matter. At that time, we arrived at the northern border of the primordial world together and were attacked halfway. Jiang Ji1 betrayed us in order to survive alone. Jiang Ji1's face turned ashen. At that time, all of us planned to split into two groups and escape separately. Jiang Ji1 was the first to be caught by the other party, and then, she told the other party everything. Then, while the other party wasn't paying attention, she ran away alone. With every word that Elder Danqing said, Jiang Ji1's despair surged up a little more, and in the end, she was completely swallowed up. She's quite lucky. After such a torment, she actually managed to survive. However, I heard that it also caused a lot of trouble for Hua Feng and the others. Compared to what you guys did, we're nothing. Elder Hua Feng waved his hand as if he didn't care. She just killed a nine-tailed blue crow and almost caused us to die under the claws of the nine-tailed blue crows. This understatement of sarcasm made Jiang Hetian feel as if a fishbone was stuck in his throat, and his face turned green and white. Elder Danqing looked at him and sipped his tea unhurriedly. Now, Patriarch Jiang, do you still want an explanation? Pengmin Mountain. It was as quiet as ever. Even though the outside was turbulent, no one dared to come here to disturb them. Inside the tower, in an empty room, the 7 fan doors floated quietly. A faint glow shone on the black jade floor, pure and holy. Suddenly, a slight fluctuation came from one of the doors. This movement immediately attracted Elder Meng's attention. A deep and old voice sounded in the room, with a hint of puzzlement. As time passed, the ripples on the door gradually grew stronger. Even the entire door frame started to tremble slightly. It was as if something was about to rush out. Could it be that the girl is back? Elder Meng's voice was filled with shock and surprise. Other than her, no one else could cause such a commotion. But, why wasn't there any news from outside? If that girl was really back, Bo Yen and the others should have come to tell him long ago. Dong! The power inside began to hit the door, as if it was trying to break free. As expected, you're still as restless as her. Elder Meng snorted softly. An invisible and majestic force suddenly converged from all directions, enveloping the door within. Being suppressed, the fluctuation on the door gradually decreased. However, after a moment of silence, there was another sound of impact from behind the door. Dong dong. Dong dong. One sound, one after another, was extremely rhythmic. In the calmness, there was passion and intensity. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1397. In the end, Jiang Hetian still left Lingshao College with Jiang Ji1. The father and daughter came out of the hall and walked to the boundary of the college without saying a word. Elder Hua Feng originally planned to send them off, but in the end, Jiang Hetian declined. After being humiliated to this extent, he really didn't have the face to face these Lingshao College elders anymore. The only thing he wanted to do now was to take Jiang Ji1 and leave this place as soon as possible. In the middle, there were a few students who bumped into this scene, but they just stood there and pointed. They didn't have the slightest intention of coming over to say hello or say goodbye. Those scattered strange gazes and sarcastic mockery were like a nightmare, shrouding the hearts of Jiang Ziyuan and her father, and they couldn't get rid of it. The 2 elders in charge of guarding the boundary didn't deliberately make things difficult for them. After seeing that it was them, they simply responded and opened the boundary. Jiang Hetian took the lead and stepped out. He couldn't stay in this place for a moment longer. Jiang Ji1 stood in place, but dilly-dallied. She was somewhat reluctant to part with them. She couldn't help but look back. The towering Donghuang Bell Tower, the wide and clean Qingming Square, and the rolling mountains filled with the force of heaven and earth. At this moment, a figure appeared on the Donghuang Bell Tower. Elder Bo Yen. He waved his long sleeves, and on the black wall of the Donghuang Bell Tower, the Qingyun ranking appeared. Countless names that were emitting a faint glow were shining on it. That was glory and also glory. Many people in the college looked over. Jiang Ji1 saw her name. But in the next moment, those 3 words quickly dimmed, as if drifting with the wind. Removed in public. This was the greatest humiliation he had ever suffered. Jiang Ji-won staggered and almost fell to the ground. A wave of unwillingness and resentment surged in her heart. Jiang Ji-won's hands couldn't help but clench in her sleeves. She had stayed here for several years. How could she not be reluctant to leave? It was precisely because of her outstanding performance in Lingxiao College that she could be looked up to and envied by everyone. But from today onwards, everything would vanish into thin air. The pride, the glory, the praise. Everything would be reduced to nothing. Originally, she should have gotten the best, Ziyuan. Jiang Hetian could not help but urge. His voice was a little cold, as if he was forcibly suppressing something. Jiang Ji-won came back to her senses and quickly turned around. He's here. However, just as he took a step forward, he was stopped by another elder. Wait. Jiang Ji-won looked up blankly. The other party stretched out a hand. His face was expressionless, and his tone was businesslike. Since you've been expelled from the academy, your pass will also be confiscated. Jiang Ji-won felt extremely embarrassed. This feeling of being chased out mercilessly like a stray dog, how disgusting. She had never thought that she would have such a day. But no matter how dissatisfied she was, she didn't dare to go against the other party's wishes. She took out her black jade token and handed it over. The other party took the token, but found that Jiang Ji-won was still holding it tightly. He frowned impatiently. It's time to let go. Huh? Oh. Jiang Ji-won was extremely reluctant, but she could only retreat as if her hand had been scalded. Then take care of yourselves, elders. I'll leave with my father first. Before she could finish, the 2 elders had already waved their sleeves and closed the barrier. The rest of Jiang Ji-won's words were stuck in her throat, and she couldn't say anything else. Jiang Hetian's expression finally turned completely cold. Jiang Ji-won was humiliated, but how could he not be implicated? The other party's expression was clearly thrown at him and his daughter, as well as the entire mausoleum of immortals. However, the one who was in the wrong was Jiang Ji-won. Lingxiao College had already been extremely benevolent by not publicizing the reason. Let's go. Jiang Hetian turned to leave, his expression cold. Jiang Ji-won trembled. All these years, her father had never treated her like this. Her heart clenched. She felt that during this period of time, she had really suffered all the hardships and grievances of her life. Father, Jiang Hetian shot her an extremely cold look. If you have anything to say, say it when we get back. Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Jiang Ziyuan was dumbfounded by the words that hit her in the face. The fire in her heart that had been suppressed for so long finally burst forth. I'm not going back. You're not going back? Jiang Hetian couldn't help but sneer. Then where do you want to go? Don't tell me you're still delusional about going back to Lingxiao College? After being expelled from Lingxiao College, one could imagine her situation in the world of gods from now on. He had invested so much energy and resources in her, but now it was all for naught. He still didn't know how to face those troublesome fellows in the mausoleum of immortals when he returned. Jiang Ji-won took a deep breath. I want to go to the Yuntian Tower. Jiang Hetian froze, his brows furrowed. Why are you going to the Yuntian Tower? Running away is not a solution, I'm not running away. Jiang Ji-won ran her fingers through her hair, her tone unusually firm. Father, I want to go to the Patriarch. Jiang Hetian finally realized something. But the Patriarch has been in seclusion for several years. What's the use of you going now? Then I'll wait until the Patriarch comes out. In any case, it was not appropriate for her to go anywhere, so she might as well wait. Now, the only person who could help her was the Patriarch. And only when she went to the Yuntian Tower would the Liang family have some scruples. Even if they wanted to do something to her, they had to get past this hurdle first. Rong Xiu was unwilling to help her, but it didn't mean that she couldn't rely on the Yuntian Tower. Jiang Hetian's expression finally softened a little. This was indeed the best solution at the moment. Are you sure you can stay there and wait for the patriarch to come out? Jiang Jiwan nodded firmly. As long as you go to the honorable elders and plead with them to send me there, it'll be fine. Also, I might be able to investigate Sheng Guanyu's background. You still want to investigate that? Jiang Hetian disagreed. The people who were sent to investigate the Sheng Guanyu had never returned. What could Jiang Jiwan find out on her own? In the end, she could only alert the enemy. You should take care of yourself first. Jiang Jiwan was taken aback by her father's reaction, but she still followed his advice. I understand. Jiang Hetian looked at his daughter's submissive expression and felt both heartache and anger. Forget it. Let's go to the Yuntian Tower. But if you continue to be like this. He swung his sleeves and turned to leave. Jiang Jiwan suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and quickly followed him. On the other hand, Rong Xiu sent Elder Wanjing away. He stood halfway up the mountain with his hands behind his back. The removal of Jiang Jiwan's name from the Donghuang clock tower caused quite a commotion in the academy. Everyone gathered in groups of 3 to 5, talking about something. Rong Xiu's expression did not change. He looked up slightly and looked at the top of the tower. There was a name that had been erased. There was a surging undercurrent inside. Digression. Tomorrow at 12:00 mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1398. Lingxiao College began to deal with the follow-up matters. On the other side, many aristocratic families and clans who were still in the northern region of the primitive wilderness finally realized that something was wrong. The huge tomb was surrounded by a crowd of people. It was quiet. Finally, someone couldn't help but stand up. Forget it. If any of you want to continue staying here, you can continue to stay here. I won't keep you company. This sentence instantly broke the precarious balance on the scene. Everyone looked over and couldn't help but feel nervous. Jean D glanced at him coldly and snorted. What? You can't stand it anymore? Didn't they say that they would open the barrier together? Now you want to quit. Fine. It's up to you. With one less person, there would be less competition. The other party didn't show any weakness. Ha. Jean D. Don't be too optimistic. There are so many of us. How long have we been here? Haven't we made any progress? I think ordinary people can't enter this damn place at all. Staying here is just a waste of energy. Jean D's face became a little ugly. Because he knew that the other party was telling the truth. Many people looked at each other. In fact, after such a long time, they had already been nervous, but they were too embarrassed to speak first, as if they were afraid of someone. Now that someone finally spoke first, they immediately relaxed their mental defenses and became active. That's not unreasonable. Even if there are really treasures in here, it's useless if we can't get in. What's more, Chiyu has already gone in to plunder. Who knows what leftovers are left? That's right. We can't wait anymore. We've wasted so much energy and time for nothing. Instead of waiting for an illusory opportunity here, it's better to go back and concentrate on cultivation. More and more people began to loosen up. Jean D was a little flustered. If they all left, the Golden Wings sect alone would not be able to open the barrier. Of course, even if they worked together, it seemed to be useless. He glanced at the barrier with hatred. By the way, it's been so long. Why hasn't there been any news from the people of Lingxiao College? The sudden sentence made everyone quiet for a moment. Indeed, they had been waiting here for several days, but the people from Lingxiao College had not returned. He didn't know how they were doing now. And Chu Yu, who was taken away by the black-clothed man, they have gone back. A cold voice suddenly came from the crowd. Everyone looked over in unison. The one who spoke was the man leading the group from Mount Lingyun. How do you know? There are so many things in the northern region of the primordial wilderness that we haven't figured out yet. How could they just leave like that? Jean D asked skeptically. Don't tell me you're just trying to fool us. The man put away the things in his hands and stood up. The Liang family had already started investigating Liang Shaokang's death. Those people from Lingxiao College had obviously gone back a long time ago. But fortunately, they still kept their word and did not expose the Spirit Charm Mountain. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world. It was better to return as soon as possible and make preparations early. The group of people behind him also gathered together. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Our Lingyun Mountain will not participate in this liveliness. Please do as you please. After saying this, the man happily turned around and left with his men. The people who were left behind were stunned. Wasn't this too sudden? The figures of the people from Mount Lingyun quickly disappeared. With one side taking the lead, it was much easier for the rest to leave. Even Lingxiao College has left. Then, is there something wrong with this place? Why don't we leave too? There's really no point in staying here. As they spoke, the various forces began to leave one after another. Jean D originally wanted to resist for a while longer, but seeing that everyone had left, he felt a little guilty. Therefore, after half a day, he tried a few more times and found that he really couldn't do anything to the barrier, so he could only give up. In the end, he left with his men. At this point, the surroundings of the tomb finally quieted down again. The wind howled, and snow fell from the sky again. The 9 dragon skeletons were motionless in the canyon, as if they had completely died. Only the silver barrier outside the tomb was flickering. It was as if something was about to wake up from its deep sleep. Mount Jianghu. Time passed slowly. Chu Luyue had already been lying in bed for 3 days. She was completely unaware of everything that had happened outside. A barrier isolated all the noise outside. During these 3 days, Rong Xiu had always been by her side. Every morning, Elder Wanzheng would come once to check on Chu Liuyue's situation. Seeing that she hadn't woken up, Elder Wanzheng became more and more anxious. However, in comparison, Rong Xiu didn't seem to be so anxious. Elder Wanzheng could only temporarily suppress the emotions in his heart and wait patiently with them. Fortunately, Chu Liuyue's physical condition was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. And vaguely, the aura on her body was still strengthening. Elder Wanzheng only thought that it was because she had broken through in the primordial north and obtained that opportunity, so he didn't take it to heart. This kid was already able to break through from a rank 8 warrior to a rank 9 warrior in a few days. No matter what happened, it didn't seem to be shocking anymore. It was a pity that Chu Luyue hadn't woken up, so the Academy's investigation of the primordial north couldn't be carried out. However, with Rong Xiu around, they couldn't disturb her and could only wait outside day by day. Chu Luyue felt that she had a long dream. In the dream, she had another name and another identity. She kept hearing someone calling her. Although she couldn't hear clearly what was being called, she knew that it was her. There seemed to be someone by her side all the time. She wanted to see the other person's appearance clearly, but she couldn't. Vaguely, she felt that this person seemed to be somewhat similar to Rong Xiu, but it didn't feel completely the same. She felt a little puzzled and frowned. Later, she dreamed of a very strange scene. It was a snowy day. Goose feather-like snow fell. The world was covered in white snow, as if it had covered everything. Only one place had a special scenery. Many peach blossoms bloomed quietly in the ice and snow. The light pink petals swayed gently in the cold wind, and the stamen emitted a faint fragrance. With a light sniff, it refreshed one's heart. Against the pure silvery white background, these balls of pink looked especially lively and pleasing. Snowflakes fell on the petals, sparkling and translucent. She turned around and smiled at that person. "Look. I told you that peach blossoms can bloom in winter." That person seemed to chuckle softly and walked towards her. Closer and closer. Clang, a sound suddenly shattered all of the illusions. Chu Luyue suddenly opened her eyes. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1399. She sat up and looked in the direction of the sound. The door opened a crack, and a big furry head poked in. Its movements suddenly stopped, and it looked helplessly at the teacup that had suddenly fallen in front of it. Clearly, it didn't expect that its subtle movements would cause such a big commotion. Who would have thought that someone would put a teacup on an unlocked door? Tui. Someone was too much. As if it sensed her gaze, it slowly turned its stiff neck and looked in her direction. A human and a beast looked at each other. A pair of icy blue eyes widened slightly, and there was some nervousness in them. Then, it blinked. Awake, awake? Looking at Xue Xue's dazed expression, Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh out loud, and she waved at it. Xue Xue, why are you in a daze? Come here. Roar. Xue Xue let out an excited roar, and it quickly pounced on Chu Luiyue. With a vigorous leap, it directly jumped from the door into Chu Luiyue's arms. It was about to hug her. A cold and deep voice came from outside the door. Xue Xue immediately became alert, and it slammed on the brakes. It actually stopped half an inch in front of Chu Luiyue. Its big head almost hit Chu Luiyue's face. The scene seemed to have frozen. Chu Luiyue looked at the wet nose in front of her, and the pair of icy blue eyes that were filled with panic and guilt, and the corners of her eyes twitched slightly. A well-defined hand appeared on the door, and then it slowly pushed it open. Rongxiu walked in. It seemed to be evening at this time, and the afterglow of the setting sun shone on him with a faint golden glow, making him look like a god that had walked out of a painting. His deep and clear phoenix eyes looked at Chu Luiyue, and his thin scarlet lips curled up slightly. You're awake? When he heard the commotion, he had already guessed it and immediately came in. Chu Luiyue looked at his face. The light behind him enveloped his face, and it was as clear as jade, but it also seemed to be covered by a layer of veil that couldn't be seen through. Rongxiu. She tilted her head. I dreamt of you. Rongxiu's eyes moved slightly, and he walked over. His footsteps were calm, and his whole body was cold and noble. Is that so? Standing by the bed, he glanced at Xue Xue's body. Xue Xue shuddered and tactfully turned around to leave, running away like a wisp of smoke. Chu Luiyue, what did you dream of? Asked Rongxiu softly as he sat down by the bed and held her hand. Chu Luiyue stared at him fixedly as if she wanted to see something from his eyes. She smiled. I dreamt. I took you to see the peach blossoms blooming in winter. Rongxiu's expression didn't change, but there seemed to be waves in the depths of his eyes. Was it beautiful? He held her face with one hand, and the corners of his mouth curled up. A warm breath came from his palm, with deep affection and gentleness. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and she suddenly felt a strong sense of fatigue. She held Rongxiu's hand and gently pressed her face against it. Rongxiu was slightly stunned. In the next moment, Chu Luiyue looked up at him again. Perhaps it was because she had just woken up, or perhaps it was because the dream was too complicated, and it made her physically and mentally exhausted. Her voice became lazy and slightly elongated, and there was a hint of softness and coquettishness in it. Rongxiu, she spoke in a low voice, but it was like a long silk thread that gently wrapped around his heart. His heart suddenly softened. He moved closer, took her into his arms, and kissed her between her eyebrows. It's beautiful when I look at it with you. Chu Luiyue muttered. Her voice wasn't loud, but he heard it clearly. He couldn't help but laugh, and even the corners of his eyes and eyebrows had a hint of a smile. Really? Chu Luiyue leaned on his shoulder and nodded gently. I don't know why, but I can't see your face clearly in my dreams. Rongxiu paused and pinched her delicate earlobe. I'm right here. You can look at me however you want. Chu Luiyue leaned in his arms for a while, and when she felt that her physical and mental strength had recovered, she propped herself up. She looked at him, and her eyes were as bright as stars. Suddenly, she leaned forward and quickly kissed him on the lips. You're right. He was hers, and he was right here. What was there to be conflicted about? Rong Xiu's eyes suddenly darkened. However, just as he was about to continue, Chu Luiyue suddenly said, Rong Xiu, can you do me a favor? Rong Xiu paused. What favor? Chu Luiyue looked hesitant. I want to go to Mount Pingmin. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. Why? No reason. Chu Luiyue said, took half a step back, and was about to lift the quilt and get up. Halfway through lifting the quilt, she suddenly stopped. Then, she slowly raised her head and looked at Rong Xiu in a daze. How long have I slept? She vaguely knew that she was carried back to Mount Jianghu by Rong Xiu from the northern region of the primitive land, but she didn't remember how much time she had experienced on the way. Rong Xiu looked calm. 7 days. The corners of Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched crazily. She swallowed hard and asked word by word, then, my clothes for the past 7 days. I helped you change your clothes, and I fed you tea and pills. Rong Xiu seemed to know what she wanted to ask, and he answered smoothly. He suddenly approached and put his hands on Chu Luiyue's side. Chu Luiyue instinctively moved backward and only stopped when her back touched the head of the bed. Rong Xiu quietly closed in, and the distance between the two of them rapidly shortened. Finally, they breathed. There seemed to be thousands of streams of light flowing in his eyes, which was intoxicating. Any woman in the world would find it difficult to break free from such a deep gaze. Then, Chu Luiyue's face suddenly became hot, and her whole body was hot. The blood on my body, those dirty blood stains naturally have to be washed away as soon as possible. Otherwise, the wound will become inflamed and even fester, won't it? Rong Xiu continued her words. No one else in the academy can do this, so I can only do it personally. You don't want your identity to be exposed, right? He was very close, and when he spoke, his warm breath sprayed on her slender neck and ears. It was like a spark starting a prairie fire. Chu Luiyue didn't hear his words clearly for a moment, and only felt like something was gently scratching her heart, making her a little distracted. Don't worry. In order to let your wound recover as soon as possible, I will help you every day for the next few days. Chu Luiyue finally couldn't listen anymore. She grabbed the front of his clothes, pulled him over, and kissed him. There seemed to be flames burning in her eyes, warm and bright. Let's see what else you can say. Rong Xiu suddenly sighed softly, and his words were unclear. Actually, it's been hard on me, mobile users. Please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1400. It's been hard on me too. Chu Luiyue's face seemed to be on fire, it was almost boiling hot. Was she sleeping too deeply these days, or was Rong Xiu's movements so gentle that she didn't notice? Rong Xiu. It was rare for Chu Luiyue to feel embarrassed. Rong Xiu saw that her face was red from teasing, so he finally stopped and left reluctantly. He held her hand and intertwined their fingers. We're already engaged, we're just short of a big wedding, aren't we? If you think it's impossible, then you help me? Chu Luiyue didn't know how to respond. This man's heart, liver, spleen, and lungs were really black, and his skin was getting thicker by the day. She took a deep breath, snorted softly, and glared at him. In your dreams. Immediately, she was finally able to get up. At this moment, she realized that the snow-white underwear on her body didn't seem to be her clothes. As if seeing her doubts, Rong Xiu kindly explained, I have some spare clothes. It's just that. They're all from a few months ago, and now they don't quite fit. At this point, he glanced at her body with an extremely indifferent gaze. Although these were modeled after men's clothes and the underwear was looser, it still couldn't hide the girl's exquisite figure. Her stillness and movement were breathtaking. He vaguely felt a little hot, so he automatically looked away, one hand unconsciously loosening his collar. Make do with them first, I'll get them to send new ones over in a few days. Chu Luiyue. You've been preparing clothes for me? He even prepared underwear. Rong Xiu didn't deny it and said frankly, "You're growing. You're still growing, so it's natural for you to change your clothes often. It's supposed to be changed once a month, but you've been staying in the academy recently, so they didn't send them over for the time being." After all, she was still 16 or 17 years old. In such a short period of time, she had undergone amazing changes. Rong Xiu calmly rubbed his fingers, and there seemed to be a lingering fragrance on his fingertips. Chu Luiyue felt that she couldn't stay in this room any longer. She searched around and found that the previous clothes were all gone. Thinking about it, those clothes were full of blood stains, so she couldn't take them back. She took out a red robe from the universe ring and put it on, with a black jade belt around her waist. With her hair tied up, from afar, she looked like an elegant young man. Except for her exceedingly beautiful face. Chu Luiyue looked at herself in the bronze mirror and sized herself up. "It's not good to wear that mask all the time, so I'll only help you wear it for a while when elders are." As Rong Xiu spoke, he flicked his wrist, and the thin mask flew to Chu Luiyue and gently landed on the ground. Chu Luiyue reached out and caught it. She wanted to put it on her face, but she paused after thinking about it. She looked up at herself in the bronze mirror again. She hadn't looked at her face so carefully for a long time. A few months had passed, and her appearance seemed to have changed slightly. Her eyes were more delicate and beautiful, and the contours of her cheeks were clearer. All in all, she looked more and more like the Shangguan Yu of the past. She remembered that when she was this age in her previous life, her appearance seemed to be 70 to 80% similar to her current appearance. Coupled with her expression, it was even more similar. A thought suddenly flashed through Chu Luiyue's mind. Would she become exactly the same as her old self in a few years? But how could there be someone who was exactly the same in this world? Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes slightly to hide the emotions in her eyes, and carefully put the mask back on. Yes or no, she would know when the time came. After checking her body from head to toe and confirming that there were no problems, Chu Luiyue turned to look at Rong Xiu. "Will you help me with the previous favor?" She was talking about the matter of Mount Pengmin. Rong Xiu's breath froze slightly, and then he smiled at her. I will do my best to help you." After Chu Luiyue packed up, she went to find Elder Wanzheng. After all, he was her master, and he had worked hard for her during this period of time. She had to go over and greet him. And the news of her waking up was also known by Elder Bo Yen. Because it was Rong Xiu who came personally to tell him. "What? You want Chuyu to enter Mount Pengmin?" Elder Bo Yen stopped what he was doing and closed the thick book with a puzzled look. He just woke up, and his body should still be very weak, right? Isn't it inappropriate to go to Mount Pengmin at this time? Besides, that place has always been the place where students who have made mistakes have been imprisoned. He's fine, so there's no reason for him to. You don't have to worry about that. You know that he just broke through to the stage 9 martial artist. Besides, it's a stretch to say that she didn't do anything wrong. She originally didn't have the qualifications to follow Elder Huafeng on this trip to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land, but she still went in the end. Furthermore, after she went, she also caused a lot of trouble. Being imprisoned in Mount Pengmin is not a punishment, but a warning. Rong Xiu knew that Elder Bo Yen would not agree to this easily, so he had already prepared an excuse. Elder Bo Yen fell into deep thought and was still hesitant. But in the end, this matter should be blamed on Huafeng. After all, without his permission, Chuyu couldn't have gone. As for what happened after that, it wasn't actually Chuyu's own will. Elder Bo Yen didn't really want to put all the blame on Chu Luiyue alone. He frowned and looked at Rong Xiu with uncertainty. "Rong Xiu, there should be another reason why you want him to go to Mount Pengmin, right?" Based on Rong Xiu's attitude towards Chuyu, he definitely wasn't here to punish him this time. Rong Xiu paused for a moment. "Yes. Mount Pengmin is indeed dangerous, but the most dangerous place is often the safest place." A faint smile appeared on his face. "I just need a period of time." On the other side, Elder Wanzheng was overjoyed when he saw Chu Luiyue. He pulled her over and sized her up a few times. After confirming that her small body had really recovered and that there were no other problems, he finally relaxed. Stinking brat. This sleep scared your master half to death. Elder Wanzheng was usually a rather serious person. Now that he said such words, it could be seen that he was deeply affected by Chu Luiyue. There was nothing he could do. When he thought of her lying in Rongxiu's arms with a pale and haggard face, his heart tightened. All these years, he had searched and searched, and it wasn't easy for him to find this disciple. How could he not feel heartache when something happened? Chu Luiyue's heart warmed. Master, don't worry, I'm fine. Wanzheng. At this moment, a familiar voice sounded. The two of them turned around and saw a barefoot old man waving a cattail leaf fan flying over. Elder Meng Yi. Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly skipped a beat. If I remember correctly, Elder Meng Yi said that when Elder Wanzheng returned, he would show him the bill? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1401. Meng Yi? Why are you here? Elder Wanzheng was in a good mood at this moment. When he looked at Elder Meng Yi, he was all smiles. Of course, I'm here to deliver something to you. Elder Meng Yi shouted with great vigor. As he spoke, he had already arrived in front of Elder Wanzheng. The moment he landed, he took a closer look and saw Chu Luiyue standing beside him. He was pleasantly surprised at first. Then, he thought of something and his smile turned meaningful. Yo-ho! Chu Yu. You're here too. Why? Have you recovered? Chu Luiyue sighed inwardly. It seemed like the entire academy already knew that she had been unconscious for such a long time. Thank you for your concern, Elder Meng Yi. Chu Luiyue bowed obediently. I just woke up today, and my body is much better. I wanted to pay my master a visit, but I didn't expect to meet you here. May I know how Elder Meng Yi is doing? Elder Meng Yi flapped his fan and laughed. Good. Of course. He was staying in the academy and taking care of the Medicine Wind Valley. How could he not be doing well? The ones who weren't doing well were those who went to the north of the wilderness. Right, Wanzheng, I'm here today to deliver something to you. Elder Meng Yi chuckled. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. She suddenly had the thought of leaving. Master, Elder Meng Yi, please take your time. I won't disturb you any longer. Elder Wanzheng hurriedly said. Hey, why are you leaving so soon? We haven't had a proper talk yet. Chu Luiyue's mouth twitched. If she continued to stay, they wouldn't be able to have a proper talk. Elder Meng Yi chuckled. If the child wants to leave, just let him go. He has just recovered, and he has many things to do. Don't you think so, Chu Yu? Chu Luiyue nodded seriously. It seemed like Elder Meng Yi didn't intend to push her into a corner. However, Elder Wanzheng wasn't willing to do so. Even if you have something to do, you have to step back. She was his precious disciple. Who didn't she have to step back? Meng Yi, what did you say you were going to give me? Elder Meng Yi clenched his fist and coughed dryly. It's nothing much. Elder Wanzheng had a strange look on his face. Meng Yi usually stayed in Medicine Wind Valley and rarely came out. Normally, they would only be willing to leave that place when there was an urgent matter. What's going on today? At this moment, another person arrived. Chu Yu. Chu Luiyue turned his head and heaved a sigh of relief. Senior brother Rongxiu. Rongxiu, why are you here? Elder Wanzheng swept his gaze across the group. What day was it today? These people rarely set foot in this place, but they actually came together today. Rongxiu's footsteps looked light and slow, but his speed was extremely fast. In a short while, he had already arrived in front of them. He first bowed to the two elders, then slowly smiled and said, Elder Bo Yen asked me to bring Chu Yu to Pengmin Mountain. This time, the two elders were both shocked. Pengmin Mountain? Again? There was a moment of silence. Chu Luiyue rubbed his glabella. How can this do? Chu Yu just woke up, and his body hasn't recovered yet. He can't go. Elder Wanzhang was protective of his disciple and would not agree no matter what. In his opinion, his precious disciple had just come out of the well and entered the fire pit. Master, this is Elder Bo Yan's order, we can't go against it. Chu Luiyue just said a sentence when he was interrupted by Elder Wanzhang. Don't worry. This time, I'll personally go and seek an explanation for you. Bullying us has become a habit. Chu Luiyue felt his head hurt even more. Elder Wanzhang. Rong Xiu did not seem to be worried and only smiled. Elder Bo Yan has his reasons for doing this. Reasons? What reasons? Elder Wanzhang was very unconvinced. His precious disciple had suffered a lot recently. How could he still go to Pengmin Mountain at this time? Rong Xiu calmly explained, that's right. After the incident in the northern part of the Great Desolate Land, the Academy has been investigating the truth behind it. I heard that in these 2 days, the other first-rate families and clans have also come out one after another and started to do this. A turmoil might be coming. Elder Wanzhang's movements paused, and his expression became complicated. Chu Yu was the only one who was taken away by those people in public. Needless to say, she also obtained some kind of opportunity in that place and broke through to become a stage 9 warrior. She will definitely be one of the targets that everyone will investigate. Entering Pengmin Mountain, on one hand, he can cultivate in peace, and on the other hand, he can avoid all these disturbances. Rong Xiu's tone was calm from beginning to end, but it carried a strange persuasiveness that made people involuntarily believe in it. Elder Wanzhang was silent for a long time. Chu Luiyue took a step forward. Master, you don't have to worry. I feel that Pengmin Mountain is actually quite good. She was speaking from the bottom of her heart. Unfortunately, in Elder Wanzhang's ears, it was his precious disciple who said it on purpose so that he wouldn't be worried. He felt more and more heartache and shook his head repeatedly. Forget it. Since that's the case, you go over for a while. When this matter is over, you will definitely come out as soon as possible. Chu Luiyue smiled. Then Master, I will go with Senior Rong Xiu now. Elder Wanzhang waved his hand. Chu Luiyue bowed again before leaving with Rong Xiu. After watching the two figures disappear, Elder Wanzhang reluctantly retracted his gaze. Sigh, don't be sad for now. Elder Meng Yi nudged him with his elbow and handed over something. What is this? Elder Wanzhang took it with a blank face. Elder Meng Yi grinned. Actually, it's nothing much. It's just the medicinal herbs bill that Chu Yu took from Medicine Wine Valley some time ago. Look, isn't it time to settle the bill? Elder Wanzhang could not help but laugh. I was still wondering what it was. Isn't it just? The rest of his words stopped abruptly. Elder Wanzhang stared at the item in his hand with his mouth agape. He almost thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. This brat, did he pick the entire Medicine Wind Valley? Elder Meng Yi was a little unhappy. Sigh, how can it be so exaggerated? It's clearly only 3/4. Moreover, don't you have a lot of points? That's nothing to you, is it? Ah. Elder Wanzhang closed his eyes. He suddenly remembered what his disciple said just now. That Pengmin Mountain was quite good. It was a good place to hide from the limelight. So it was waiting for him here. This brat. Elder Wanzhang fiercely stuffed the bill back into Elder Meng Ye's arms. Settle the bill. Next time, I must nurture a top celestial physician. Chu Luiyue did not hear Elder Wanzhang's bold words. She walked with Rong Xiu all the way. She was familiar with the road and soon arrived at Pengmin Mountain. Rong Xiu took a step forward. Elder Meng. Rong Xiu brought Chu Yu to greet him. No one responded. There was silence. Rong Xiu frowned slightly. Elder Meng? Digression, today was another day of running. The rest of the day would probably have to go home very late to continue updating. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1402. After a while, the barrier in front of her finally rippled and slowly opened. Come in. An old and deep voice entered her ears. Chu Luiyue was slightly stunned. This voice sounded a little more serious and cold than before, and vaguely, there seemed to be a little tiredness. I haven't been here for a while. Why? Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes, obviously sensing that something was wrong. He turned around and looked at Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue's figure flashed as she followed Rong Xiu in. The two went straight and came to the tower. With previous experience, Chu Luiyue was now familiar with the place. She walked straight to the door. When she was 3 steps away, the door slowly opened. Looking inside, it was pitch black. Chu Luiyue's heart tightened. She took a deep breath and walked inside. You, Chu Yu. Rong Xiu suddenly called out to her. Chu Luiyue turned around. The two looked at each other. In the silence, something seemed to be flowing slowly. Rong Xiu's thin lips moved slightly, and waves gradually appeared in his eyes. But in the end, he calmed down. Everything went well. Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly. Don't worry, I will. With that, she turned around and walked through the door without hesitation. Bang! The door closed tightly, and her figure completely disappeared from sight. Rong Xiu stood tall, with one hand behind his back, and stared at the door for a long time. After a long time, he finally turned around and left. Coming to this place again, Chu Luiyue felt a long-lost sense of familiarity. Step by step, she walked inside. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks and looked at the scene in front of her with a shocked expression. In the empty and quiet room, there were originally 7 suspended doors, but now, only 6 were left. The 6 doors had changed their positions, and the distance between them was the same. At a glance, it was impossible to tell that there used to be 7 doors here. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment, then asked Elder Meng, why is there a door missing here? After a moment of silence, Elder Meng spoke in a low voice. Nothing much, just a little trouble. Little troublemaker? It didn't look like it at all. Chu Luiyue cursed in his heart. There were a total of 7 doors, and all of a sudden, 1 was missing. If she hadn't been here before, she wouldn't have noticed the problem. However, Chu Luiyue knew that Elder Meng didn't want to talk about it in detail, so he didn't continue to ask. Originally, during this period of time, I wasn't going to let anyone in, but Bo Yan and Rong Xiu both spoke up for you, so I had no choice but to allow it. Old Meng said in a deep voice. A strange expression flashed across Chu Luiyue's face. In the eyes of others, being imprisoned here was one of the greatest punishments. They were afraid that they would not be able to avoid it. Only when it came to her, she was not the only one who wanted to come. Even the others were helping her. This kind of feeling was really awesome. Rong Xiu and the rest must have used the same excuse they used to deal with Elder Wanzheng to convince Elder Meng. For some reason, Chu Luiyue felt a little guilty. Thank you, Elder Meng. She cupped her fists and bowed respectfully. All right, you've been in the academy for a few months, and this is the 3rd time you've come. Others may not know what kind of person you are, but do you think I don't know? Elder Meng sneered. Chu Luiyue coughed softly and touched her nose awkwardly. This was really, although there's a door missing, it doesn't matter. You just have to choose one and go in. He really didn't know what this kid had done to make Bo Yan and Rong Xiu speak up for him, just to send him here. If it was any other time, it wouldn't matter. However, during this period of time, if it wasn't for those people, he wouldn't have let this kid in at this time. Forget it. In the end, it was just a small matter. Chu Luiyue responded and looked at the 6 doors in front of her. These doors were still emitting a faint glow, and were no different from what she had seen before. Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment and pointed to the leftmost door. I want to choose this one. Enter. Elder Meng's answer was straightforward. Chu Luiyue walked over. She pressed one hand on the door and pushed hard. The door didn't budge. Chu Luiyue took a step back in surprise and took a closer look. There was no problem. But why didn't this door open? She tried to increase her strength. She still couldn't push it open. This shouldn't be her problem, right? Chu Luiyue shouted with some hesitation. Elder Meng, this door can't be opened? Elder Meng obviously didn't expect this to happen. In the past, all these doors could be opened casually. You really can't open it? Chu Luiyue pushed again with an innocent look. It was like an iron wall. Indeed, it couldn't be opened. Then try another one. Elder Meng said. Chu Luiyue nodded and walked to the second door. After a push, her expression changed again. Elder Meng, I still can't open it. Impossible. Elder Meng raised his voice. Chu Luiyue smiled bitterly. Do you think I can lie to you here? It wasn't that she hadn't been here before. Every time, she directly pushed the door open and entered. When had it ever been like this time, where she couldn't open it after much effort? Clearly, there was something wrong with this door. Elder Meng was silent for a moment. Try another one. Chu Luiyue held her breath and walked to the third door. Staring at the door in front of her, she suddenly had a strong premonition. Perhaps, she reached out her hand and tried it. Then, she shook her head and gave up. Elder Meng, no. Then, under Elder Meng's instructions, Chu Luiyue tried all 6 doors. None of them worked. All the doors seemed to be locked from the inside. They couldn't be opened at all. Chu Luiyue rubbed between her eyebrows. She felt a headache coming on. Elder Meng couldn't help but ask, Kid, is there something wrong with you? Chu Luiyue was speechless. Elder Meng, I haven't been here for a while. This shouldn't be my fault, right? Chu Luiyue felt that this was a scam. When she came, there was one door missing. Obviously, something had happened here before. How could she be blamed for this? Elder Meng choked for a moment, then snorted. Then you can stay in this hall. This kid has a temper. It was already troublesome enough because of that thing, and now I have to take care of this kid. What a thankless task. Chu Luiyue said. Oh. Stay in the hall then. These doors can't be opened anyway. Isn't it the same wherever I am? After saying that, Chu Luiyue sat on the ground. The jade floor was cold and cool. A wave of coldness swept over. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but shiver. She sat cross-legged with her shoulders hanging naturally. Her palms were on her knees with her palms facing up. The surrounding heaven and earth force slowly surged toward her body. Chu Luiyue gradually calmed down. Although the concentration of heaven and earth force here wasn't as strong as the one behind the door, it wasn't bad. Suddenly, a thought flashed through her mind like a spark from a flint. Wait. The door that disappeared, could it be, was it the door that she went through before? Digression, I only got home after 8:00 tonight. I'm so sorry. I'll update at 12:00 tomorrow. I'm going to eat mobile users. Please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1403. Just as this thought popped up in her head, Chu Luiyue suddenly felt a faint light flash across her eyes. She closed her eyes and looked again, but there was nothing there. The void in front of her was still empty. Her fingertips moved slightly, and she was surprised to find that the space around her seemed to have become more viscous. This change was very subtle. If one did not look carefully, they would not notice it. Confusion surfaced in Chu Luiyue's heart. This place. Why is it getting weirder? She wanted to ask Elder Meng, but on second thought, everything here should be under Elder Meng's control. Since he did not have any reaction, it should be fine. She closed her eyes and entered the state of cultivation again. Chu Luiyue stayed in Mount Pingmin just like that. Outside, however, a storm was already brewing. Liang Shaokong, the third young master of the Liang family, died in the primeval desolate north for no reason. They did not even know who the murderer was. Liang Xiaoxiao went back to the Liang family without stopping. When she reached home, the Liang family had already received the news. The atmosphere in the Liang family, from inside to outside, was solemn. In the study, the Liang family's master, Liang Yi, was frowning. The dark circles under his eyes, as well as his bloodshot eyes, made this extraordinary figure seem much older and more haggard. Although he had several sons, he had always doted on Liang Shaokong the most. Now that he had lost his beloved son, how could he not be sad? When Liang Xiaoxiao came in, she found that the air here seemed to have frozen. "Father." She opened her mouth, and tears were falling from her eyes. Liang Yi immediately went forward. "Xiaoxiao. You're finally back." He stared at Liang Xiaoxiao. "You went to the primeval desolate north with the academy. Do you know what happened to your brother?" Liang Xiaoxiao wiped her tears and asked while holding back her sobs. "Father, didn't you say that the family has something to do, so you won't get involved in the primeval desolate north? Why would third brother appear there?" Liang Yi's expression froze, and he looked away. He sneaked over behind my back. "Father, do you believe what you said? Third brother didn't go alone. He brought along a few elders from the clan. Without your permission, how could third brother possibly invite them?" Liang Xiaoxiao originally didn't know about it, but this matter had already spread throughout the entire Liang family. No matter how slow she was, she should have known. Liang Yi loosened his grip on her arm and half turned around. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. After a long while, he said, "I'm sorry. You also know that your third brother is not the most outstanding in all aspects. It will be difficult for him to convince everyone to inherit the family business. If he can make a contribution in the northern region of the Great Desolate Land, then, Father." "You're confused." Liang Xiaoxiao couldn't help but interrupt him. She felt as if there was a fire burning in her chest. "Don't you know how capable third brother is? The Great Desolate North is so dangerous, and you actually let him go just like that. And behind her back. No, this matter should have been done behind the backs of the entire Liang family. All for the sake of letting Liang Shaokong amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Take this opportunity to rise to the top." Liang Yi could not help but raise his voice. "I've already sent several elders to follow him closely, who knows?" His voice came to an abrupt stop, and the veins on his forehead bulged as he slammed his fist on the table beside him. Bang! A corner of the high-quality table carved from black ironwood was smashed into pieces. Liang Xiaoxiao's body trembled, and a wave of bitterness surged in her heart. That's right. Father was also doing this for third brother's sake. He should be feeling worse than anyone else, right? She took a deep breath and said word by word, "Father, although I still don't know who the culprit is, I know where to start investigating." Liang Yi suddenly turned around. Liang Xiaoxiao clenched her fists, and a deep hatred appeared in her eyes. "Jiang Ji1. If you want to find the truth, you just have to find her." Jiang Ji1? The Jiang family of the immortal water tomb? What does this have to do with her? Liang Yi was confused. He looked at Liang Xiaoxiao's expression and could not help but ask also, "Weren't you very close to her in the past?" "How, close?" "Ha! Father, you don't know what that bitch did." Following that, Liang Xiaoxiao told Liang Yi everything that she knew in detail. Liang Yi's expression changed rapidly. In the end, there was only a layer of frost left. The Academy has always maintained a neutral stance. It's basically impossible to get any information from them. But Jiang Ji1 is different. Moreover, third brother once asked her for help, but she still ignored him. How despicable. Liang Xiaoxiao wanted nothing more than to tear Jiang Jiwan to shreds right now. I understand, Liang Ye suppressed the anger in his heart and laughed coldly. Just someone from the Immortal Water Mausoleum, and yet they have such guts. I'd like to see how they plan to give the Liang family an explanation this time. As he spoke, he lifted his foot and walked out. Father. Where are you going? Liang Xiaoxiao was shocked and hurried to follow. Liang Ye did not look back. I'm going to the Immortal Water Mausoleum personally to find out the truth and avenge Shao Kong. Liang Xiaoxiao pursed her lips. I'll go with you. The Liang family people came to the Immortal Water Mausoleum aggressively, but they came up empty. Jiang Jiwan did not return to the Immortal Water Mausoleum at all. She went straight to the Yuntian Tower. Bitch! How cunning! Liang Xiaoxiao was furious. If Jiang Jiwan escaped to the Yuntian Tower, then it would not be so easy to force her out again. After all, the Yuntian Tower was also a first-class family, and its status was higher than theirs. They dared to come to the Immortal Water Mausoleum to cause trouble, but they might not dare to go to the Yuntian Tower's door. But Liang Ye had a different attitude. The Yuntian Tower might not protect her. Xiao, didn't you say that Jiang Jiwan asked Rong Xiu for help, but Rong Xiu ignored her? Liang Xiaoxiao smiled mockingly. That's right. She still thinks that she's the future princess of the Yuntian Tower and that Rong Xiu will treat her differently from others. In fact, I think Rong Xiu won't even look at her. That day, Rong Xiu gave Jiang Jiwan a hard slap in front of everyone. That's right. Liang Ye sighed in relief. Rong Xiu is in charge of the Yuntian Tower now. His attitude toward Jiang Jiwan will determine the attitude of the Yuntian Tower toward her. He did not believe that the Yuntian Tower would want to get involved with such a big problem. Liang Xiaoxiao's eyes lit up. Father is right. Jiang Ziyuan had already been expelled from the Ling Shao Academy, and her reputation in the Divine Ruins world had reached rock bottom. Even if the Immortal Water Mausoleum is the leader of the 28 divisions of the Yuntian Tower, they might not be willing to protect her. Liang Ye nodded. Then, let's go to the Yuntian Tower. If Jiang Jiwan is rejected, we can make our move. Yuntian Tower. Jiang Hetian and Jiang Jiwan had been waiting outside the barrier for 3 days and 3 nights. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1404. After what had happened, Jiang Jiwan had thought that her mentality had been tempered and that she would be able to deal with any problem she faced. However, after waiting here for 3 days, she was on the verge of despair again. She had never thought that the Yuntian Tower, where she had come and gone freely since she was a child, would one day reject her. And so mercilessly. Jiang Hetian's expression darkened. However, he was a man who had seen his fair share of storms and was able to keep his composure better than Jiang Jiwan. He glanced at the sky, then stepped forward again and asked the guard in charge. Is Elder Yu Jingzuan not here yet? The guard cupped his hands in salute, but his expression was cold and indifferent. Elder Yu Jingzuan is very busy. We don't know when he will arrive. How could Jiang Hetian not see that the guard was being perfunctory? If it was in the past, they would not have dared to treat him like this. However, now that the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower had been decided and Jiang Jiwan had failed, they no longer had to treat her like this. Not to mention, the news of Jiang Jiwan's expulsion from Lingshao College had already spread like wildfire. Given the sensitivity of the Yuntian Tower, they would have known about it long ago. If not for the fact that the Tomb of Immortal Water had a place among the 28 tribes, they would not even have had the chance to wait here. They would have been directly kicked out. Jiang Hetian glanced inside again. Of course, he could not see anything clearly from here. He paused and could not help but ask. Did you really inform your superiors of our arrival? The guard frowned. Patriarch Jiang, do you not trust us? Wasn't he openly questioning them? Jiang Hetian's heart skipped a beat. It's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Maybe Elder Yu Jingzuan is still busy, we'll just wait a little longer. After saying that, he took 2 steps back and stood to the side. When Jiang Ziyuan saw this, she almost gnashed her teeth to pieces. If not for her, father would not have to suffer such humiliation. What's the fuss? Just then, a cold and serious voice sounded. Jiang Hetian and Jiang Jiwan were overjoyed and looked up. An old man walked out of the barrier. It was Honorable Elder Yu Jing, whom they had been waiting for 3 days. Honorable Elder Yu Jing. Jiang Hetian hurriedly stepped forward, and just as he was about to speak, he saw Elder Yu Jing raising his palm. There's no need to say more. This old man already knows what happened. His tone was much colder than before. However, the fact that he was able to come out at this time was already a pleasant surprise for Jiang Hetian and his daughter, so how could they care less? Elder Yu Jingzuan glared at Jiang Jiwan. You want to enter the Yuntian Tower for self-reflection and cultivation? Jiang Jiwan felt a chill run down her spine and responded in a low voice. Ziyuan has been doing something wrong recently and has caused a lot of trouble for everyone. Therefore, please stay here and cultivate while you wait for the patriarch to come out of seclusion. Clan leader has already been in seclusion for a few years. I don't know when he will come out. Once you leave, I don't know when you'll be able to come out. Are you sure? Honorable Elder Yu Jing narrowed his eyes. Jiang Jiwan's hands, which were crossed on her lower abdomen, were tightly intertwined. After a moment, she said, Clan leader has always treated Ziyuan with love and care. This is what Ziyuan should do. As long as clan leader doesn't come out of seclusion, Ziyuan will not step out of Wanzhong Mountain. Wanzhong Mountain was the place where clan leader was in seclusion. Elder Yu Jing stared at Jiang Jiwan from head to toe for a long time. Since that's the case, from today onwards, you will go. Oh, why is this place so lively? Before Honorable Elder Yu Jing could finish his words, a voice with a smile came from afar. However, when they heard this voice, their expressions changed. In the blink of an eye, that person's figure had already approached quickly. Greetings to 36 Honorable Elder Ming. The guard bowed respectfully. 36 Honorable Elder Ming chuckled and waved his hand. His eyes quickly swept across the few of them, and he asked in surprise, Oh, Patriarch Jiang, when did you guys come? Why didn't you say anything in advance? Look, you came from afar, but we didn't make any preparations in advance. What if we neglected you? Jiang Hetian's face was faintly green. Why is this guy here? And judging from his words, he's clearly here to cause trouble. He deliberately only revealed the news to Elder Yu Jing because he wanted to enter the Yuntian Tower before the news spread. As long as what was done, the others couldn't jump out to object. However, now that 36 Honorable Elder Ming was here, it would be difficult for Jiang Jiwan to enter the Yuntian Tower. He forced a smile and said, 36 Honorable Elder Ming is busy and doesn't dare to disturb you. We have already, asked Honorable Elder Yu Jing. I heard you guys talking about clan leader just now. What's going on? 36 Honorable Elder Ming chuckled and interrupted him. He calmly and decisively brushed this matter aside and looked at Jiang Jiwan. It seems, it has something to do with you? Asking the obvious. Jiang Jiwan was secretly angry. According to 36 Honorable Elder Ming's identity and strength, he could immediately know what he wanted to know. He spoke so openly just to deliberately make things difficult for her and embarrass her. However, Jiang Jiwan didn't dare to say anything and could only repeat what she said earlier. Of course, she said it in a sad, pitiful, and sincere way. However, this was of no use to 36 revered Elder Ming. So, you'll be staying in the Yuntian Tower from now on? 36 Honorable Elder Ming asked directly after hearing that. Jiang Jiwan choked. Why does this sound so strange? If clan leader can come out of seclusion soon, then Ziyuan can naturally. Clan leader has been in seclusion for a few years. If there's another 10 years, 20 years. TSK, if I remember correctly, Ziyuan, you're already at the age of marriage this year, right? You're wasting your youth here. Wouldn't that be a waste? 36 Honorable Elder Ming sighed. Jiang Ji-won's expression instantly became very interesting. Marriage? Was he deliberately mocking her for not being chosen as the princess consort? All these years, everyone thought that she would be the mistress of the Yuntian Tower, but in the end, there was nothing. Jiang Ji-won lowered her eyes, afraid that the emotions in her eyes would surge out and be seen by them. She gritted her teeth and said, "This kind of thing can't be forced in the end. It still depends on fate. Moreover, my personal matters are insignificant. Compared to clan leader coming out of seclusion, it's really not worth mentioning. Whether it's 10 years, 20 years, or even longer, I can wait." She spoke very firmly. Because this was her only way out at the moment. 36 Honorable Elder Ming raised his eyebrows and the smile on his face faded. "Even if you're willing to do this, you have to see if the others agree. After all, this Yuntian Tower doesn't belong to your Jiang family, right?" Jiang Ji-won's heart skipped a beat and she quickly defended herself. 36 Honorable Elder Ming, I didn't. Moreover, clan leader's status is precious and special. If you go, what kind of name will you have? 36 Honorable Elder Ming stroked his beard. Now that the princess consort is in charge of the Yuntian Tower, she will handle everything. You don't have to worry about this. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1405. Dead silence. The moment Chu Luiyue finished speaking, the surrounding air seemed to have frozen. Elder Bo Yan's eyelids twitched violently, and he asked almost instinctively. Used? What does that mean? Chu Luiyue suddenly smiled, and her eyes curved into crescents. I used it to reconstruct the three-eyed eagle's physical body. She was still hesitant about whether she should confess this matter. After thinking for a while, she finally chose to tell the truth. On one hand, the reaction of the scale had already pointed the finger at her, and the great Phoenix Dragon clan would definitely investigate this matter to the end. On the other hand, she had formed a contract with Zi Qin, and she would have to summon him whenever she traveled in the Divine Ruins world. The two great Phoenix Dragon wing bones were in its body, so how could they not find it? This matter could not be concealed at all, and it would be exposed sooner or later. Instead of running away pathetically, it was better to face it directly. So what if she used it? When Mao Yao heard Chu Luiyue's words, his vision turned black, and he almost fainted. This Shangguanyu actually used their noble corpses to reconstruct the three-eyed eagle's physical body? Disgrace. This was the greatest disgrace. Before coming here, he had imagined countless scenarios. However, he had never thought of this one. Although the three-eyed eagle was also a divine beast, its level was obviously much lower than theirs. How dare Shangguanyu do this? You, Mao Yao's chest seemed to be surging wildly, and he could not even complete his sentence. He only raised his finger and pointed at Chu Luiyue, his body trembling slightly. The onlookers were also shocked. What kind of trick was this? Using the great Phoenix Dragon's corpse to reconstruct the three-eyed eagle's physical body? Although the effect was not bad, that was a great Phoenix Dragon. Elder Bo Yan's face was blank. At this moment, the first thought that flashed through his mind was, no wonder the three-eyed eagle's combat power was so strong. It did not lose to the crimson gold heavenly phoenix at all. This is a serious matter. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions and speak nonsense. Elder Wanzheng suddenly let out a deep shout. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction of the voice. Elder Wanzheng's face was cold, but his eyes were filled with anxiety and nervousness. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. She knew that Elder Wanzheng didn't want her to bear the brunt of the danger, so he said that on purpose. But she was the one who did it, so she should bear all the responsibility. She raised her chin slightly. This was done by me alone. It has nothing to do with Taizu or the academy. If you want to find out who's responsible, just come at me. Shangguan Jing went forward and grabbed her arm, looking anxious. Did she know how much trouble this would bring her? The great void phoenix dragon race had chased after him for thousands of years just for that corpse. Now that she had taken it for herself, she had touched their reverse scale. Even he might not be able to protect her. Chu Liuyue's lips curved slightly, and then she pried Taizu's hand away bit by bit. Taizu, one person is responsible for one's actions. This has nothing to do with you. But, I knew that this day would come when I dared to do this. After Chu Liyue finished speaking, she suddenly tapped her toes. Her figure quickly flew into the sky. Finally, she stopped when she was almost at the same level as Mao Yao and the others. You, Elder Wanzheng wanted to go over without thinking, but Elder Huafeng stopped him. Wait. Let's see what that girl plans to do. Elder Wanzheng was extremely anxious. What time is it now? If we're late, I'm afraid she would lose her life. Elder Huafeng gritted his teeth. Didn't you see that Rongxiu hasn't moved yet? Perhaps they have other ways. Elder Wanzheng turned his head and saw that Rongxiu was still standing on the spot. He looked up slightly and was staring at the two sides that were in a confrontation. His face was expressionless, making it hard to guess. Elder Wanzheng and the others hesitated. They all knew how much Rongxiu cared about Shengguanyu. But until now, he was still biding his time. Did he really have other ways? In fact, Rongxiu had already ignored all the chaotic sounds around him. He put one hand behind his back and cracked his knuckles. He seemed to be counting the time, but also seemed to be waiting for something. His deep phoenix eyes seemed to be calm, but in reality, they were surging with undercurrents. Boom! Another bolt of heavenly lightning struck down. The top of Thousand Wine Mountain was already in a mess. Previously, Elder Bo Yen and the others had spent a lot of effort to recover from the incident, and it wasn't easy. Now that the Tianlei had fallen, everything was gone. Trees fell and rocks collapsed. The charred marks were a ghastly sight. Only the spring in the middle seemed to be sealed by an invisible barrier. The Tianlei fell around it, but it did not fall into it. Frost had condensed and covered half of it. Something seemed to be stirring in its depths, ready to erupt at any time. You're quite bold at such a young age. Mao Yao stared at Chu Liyue and laughed out of anger. Looks like you've already thought about how you're going to die. Chu Liyue also laughed. Not really. I've died once, so I cherish my life a lot. I'm here to discuss with you how we should resolve this matter. Mao Yao thought he had heard wrongly. You used the corpse of my great Phoenix Dragon clan, and you still want to live? Dream on. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly raised his hand. Chi! Suddenly, a dazzling light burst out from the scales. Then, it turned into a huge dragon and went straight for Chu Liyue. Shengguan Jing was shocked. Oh no. That's Mao Yao's true body. Digression, 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1406. 36 Respected Elder Ming glanced at her indifferently. His gaze was extremely indifferent, but it suddenly made Jiang Jiwan feel a little ashamed. That was an expression that only a powerful person who had been in a high position for a long time would reveal when facing a weak and lowly ant. Jiang Jiwan suddenly felt uncomfortable in her heart. Although she wasn't born in a real first-rate family or clan, she had always thought of herself as a favored child all these years by relying on the doting of the clan leader, coupled with her moving appearance and outstanding talent. Every time she came to Yuntian Tower, she was proud and high above. There had never been a moment when she understood so clearly that everything about her was inferior to others. She wasn't any nobler than the others. This old man has already said that such a small matter shouldn't alarm the princess consort. It's the same for this old man to do it on her behalf. 36 Respected Elder Ming said slowly. But, Jiang Jiwan still wanted to defend herself, but she met 36 Respected Elder Ming's gaze. She suddenly stopped talking, and the rest of her words were stuck in her throat, unable to be said. Considering each other's faces, this old man didn't say some things directly earlier. But if you insist on being stubborn, this old man won't be polite with you. It was probably because Jiang Jiwan's words that offended 36 respected Elder Ming. His expression became much calmer, and he said slowly, Jiang Jiwan, the matter of you being expelled from Lingxiao College has already caused an uproar in the city. Why did you come to Yuntian Tower at this juncture? Do you really think that we don't know? Are you treating everyone else as fools? Lingxiao College was the #1 college in the Divine Ruins world. Although it was extremely difficult to get into, it was very rare that they would expel a student so decisively. All these years, those who were expelled from the college had all committed unforgivable mistakes, which was why they were forcefully expelled from the college. Lingxiao College didn't announce the reason for Jiang Jiwan's expulsion to the public. But just thinking about it, one would know that it wasn't a small matter. After all, she used to be highly regarded in Lingxiao College. One could only imagine what Jiang Jiwan had done to make Lingxiao College make the next decision. How dare she come to the Yuntian Tower to seek protection? Jiang Jiwan's body swayed, and the last trace of blood on her lips completely faded. 36 respected Elder Ming. Elder Yu Jing frowned. It's normal for young people to make small mistakes occasionally. Besides, small mistake, 36 revered Elder Ming laughed, not concealing his mockery. This old man would like to ask, what kind of small mistake is it? What could make Elder Danqing want to sever their master-disciple relationship? Over the past few years, that old man had been taking special care of Jiang Jiwan. Now that he was willing to do so, it was really hard not to let one's imagination roam. Jiang Jiwan bit her lips. Her eyes were red and tears kept falling. Unfortunately, she couldn't say a single word of rebuttal. Of course, she couldn't reveal the truth to the public. If that was the case, her life would be completely over. This, Elder Yu Jing was speechless. But she is ultimately a member of the Jiang family, and the clan leader has always treated her very well. If we stand by and do nothing when she encounters such a situation, how are we going to explain it to the elders in the future? After thinking about it, he could only bring up the clan leader. 36 revered Elder Ming chuckled. Of course, let them explain it themselves. In this day and age, did people who did wrong still have reason? Besides, isn't the Jiang family just one of the subordinate clans of the Yuntian Tower? Since when can they act like a tyrant here? Yu Jing, aren't you helping them too much today? As he spoke, 36 revered Elder Ming narrowed his eyes and sized him up carefully. Elder Yu Jing felt numb all over from his gaze and quickly changed the topic. Aren't I also doing this for the Yuntian Tower? After all, the Jiang family is the leader of the 28 clans. Now that the clan leader is in seclusion and the saint is not around, if something really happens, whoever makes a mistake will bear the consequences. 36 revered Elder Ming's attitude was very unyielding. After a short silence, both sides were in a stalemate. Jiang Hetian became anxious. 36 revered Elder Ming's position was more important than revered Elder Yu Jing's. If he insisted on not letting them enter the Yuntian Tower, then, even if a few more revered elders came, there wouldn't be any hope. 36 revered Elder Ming turned to leave. He didn't have much time to waste on these people and such matters. Seal the area with a barrier. Without my orders, no outsiders are allowed to enter. Yes. The guard quickly responded. 36 revered Elder Ming. Please wait. Jiang Jiwan suddenly took a step forward. As she spoke, she took out something from her neck and gritted her teeth. I have the clan leader's token. The air froze for a moment. 36 revered Elder Ming slowly turned around and looked at Jiang Jiwan in disbelief. What did you say? Jiang Jiwan didn't want to expose this matter at first. After all, it involved too many people. But she really had no other choice. She gripped the item tightly in her hand and said word by word, I want to go to Wanzhong Mountain. Lingxiao College. Pengmin Mountain. Inside the tower, it was quiet. Time passed slowly. Even the subtle sound of the wind was hidden. Everything around seemed to have frozen, but it also seemed to be undergoing some subtle changes. At a certain moment, Chu Luiyue opened her eyes again. Her black jade-like eyes flashed with a bright light. It was like a ray of afterglow that was thrown into a pool of autumn water, causing faint ripples. Fine light and shadow intertwined, moving one's heartstrings. She blinked her eyes in a daze. Just now, it was as if a ray of light had flashed past her eyes. This statement wasn't accurate because just now, her eyes were closed. However, she had indeed seen that faint ray of light. It was as if something had flashed into her mind. But when she opened her eyes, everything disappeared again. Chu Luiyue frowned. She had never felt this way before. Only this time, after entering this place, did it inexplicably become like this. And, vaguely, she felt that Elder Meng didn't seem to know about this matter. She tried her best to keep her expression calm as her gaze slowly swept across the 6 doors. Everything was normal. It was as if nothing had happened. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes quietly. Not long after, that ray of light appeared again. This time, Chu Luiyue was finally sure that that thing had indeed quietly entered her mind. That ray of light was like a flying butterfly, wandering back and forth in front of her eyes, as if it was outlining something. Vaguely, Chu Luiyue finally saw the outline of that thing. Immediately, her heart skipped a beat. Because that ray of light had actually outlined a door in her mind. With just a glance, Chu Luiyue was sure that this was the door that she had entered before. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1407. Didn't this door disappear? Why did it suddenly appear here? Chu Luiyue was stunned for a long time before she finally accepted this fact. She adjusted her breathing and maintained the appearance of everything as usual. Gradually, the outline and lines of the door became clearer. Finally, it appeared in front of Chu Luiyue's eyes. If only this door could be opened. Just as this thought flashed through her mind, Chu Luiyue realized that the door had really opened. At this moment, she realized that her consciousness seemed to be controlled by some kind of power and condensed into a small figure. That small figure was exactly the same as her and could move according to her consciousness. Just as she was about to enter, the small figure entered through the door. Light and shadow changed in front of her eyes. Something seemed to be flying past him at high speed. It brought a gust of cold wind. After a long while, the surroundings gradually quieted down. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes. Immediately, she held her breath. She had actually entered the door. It was still the same square space, and all kinds of free and unrestrained lines were drawn. Even, the density of the heaven and earth origin force was exactly the same as before. The invisible surging power began to gather rapidly in Chu Luiyue's body. At the top of the tower. In the quiet and empty room, a blue-robed old man sat cross-legged. His hair was white, and his face was wrinkled with traces of time erosion. His aura was ethereal, and he had the demeanor of an immortal. In the void in front of him, a horsetail whisk floated quietly. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Suddenly, his brows moved slightly. A low and hoarse voice came from his throat. The next moment, he opened his eyes. It was a pair of gray eyes that were extremely pure and clean. They were as pure as a newborn baby, and as vast as the vicissitudes of life that had seen thousands of sails, deep and tolerant. If one were to meet such a pair of eyes, it would be as if all the secrets would be exposed. At this moment, he was looking at a door not far in front of him. That door and his horsetail whisk looked at each other from afar, facing each other. A look of contemplation flashed through Elder Meng's eyes. This door doesn't seem right? But upon closer inspection, it seemed to be quite normal, and he couldn't tell what was wrong. Am I thinking too much? Elder Meng calmed his heart. During this period of time, he had been tormented by this thing to the point of choking. It was a little restless before, and he spent a lot of effort to move it from the first floor to the top floor. He put it in front of him and looked at it personally. I can't let anything happen again. Elder Meng stared at the door for a while to make sure there was nothing wrong with it before he closed his eyes again. But his heart was still drumming more or less. This lass. She really doesn't want it just like that? If I catch her later. He muttered a few words to himself before he returned to his meditative state. Only that door teat. Know what state she was in her current state teat. Enter plus. If it's really such a big movement, there's no reason for Elder Meng to not come out. Unable to figure it out, Chu Luiyue decided not to think about it. Time was precious, and she had to seize every opportunity to cultivate as soon as possible. After all, it wasn't easy for her to come here. After calming her mind, Chu Luiyue began to focus on cultivation. Now that she was at the early stage of the 9th stage, her cultivation efficiency was naturally much higher than before. Plus, ever since she came back from the northern wilderness, she noticed that her aura seemed to be undergoing obvious changes every day. It was as if she had devoured too much power in the tomb, and now that she was gradually releasing it and integrating it into every inch of her body, her strength naturally increased. Plus, after she broke through to the 9th stage, the changes were far more than that. Chu Luiyue thought for a while, and looked at her dantian again. On the water droplet, 9 dazzling lines shone brightly. Although the last line was slightly inferior, it was still very eye-catching. The black pyramid was covered with countless cracks, like a spider web. Especially in the middle, there was a crack that went all the way from the top of the pyramid to the bottom, almost completely penetrating it. Only the last part was still connected to each other. At a glance, it was extremely fragile, as if it could be completely shattered with a casual touch. When Chu Luiyue woke up, it was already like this. A faint glow seeped out from those cracks, and there was a faint illusory glow. Even Chu Luiyue herself didn't know when the last part of the seal would be broken. She could even feel a strong sense of familiarity. That was indeed her soul, there was no doubt about it. Of course, there were also fragments of memories that she had forgotten. Chu Luiyue suppressed the throbbing in her heart, and crazily absorbed the surrounding energy. It was like a surging river, surging through a dry riverbed. The dry land was rejuvenated by spring, and everything became full of vitality. Chu Luiyue thought. The day when my soul returns, perhaps. It won't be too far away. Jianghu Mountain. Rongxiu returned from Pengmin Mountain. Just as he arrived at the door, his expression suddenly changed, and his eyes paused on the locked door. A moment later, he pushed the door open and entered. Dugu Mabao was waiting in the room. Hearing the sound, he turned around. His exquisite and luxurious purple robe was stained with blood. Rongxiu frowned. You did it? Digression. I'll come back after dinner, it's the last day, don't forget to vote. This month's comment stars, monthly vote stars, and recommendation stars, if you want to verify it. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1408. I've run into a little trouble. Dugu Mabao said faintly. He said it casually, but Rongxiu understood that it was not a small matter for him to be like this. I've blocked all news and used some means. There shouldn't be any problems in the short term. Dugu Mabao continued. Hearing him say this, Rongxiu swallowed the rest of his words. Where's you, Dugu Mabao paused. She seems to have broken through to the 9th stage. It shouldn't be long before she breaks through to the God realm, right? Rongxiu nodded. She's at Mount Pengmin. Dugu Mabao narrowed his eyes and didn't speak for a while. There seemed to be a glimmer of light in his demonic purple eyes. She went there on her own? Yes. I guessed. Dugu Mabao didn't look surprised, as if he had already expected it. How much did she remember? Speaking of this, he raised his gaze and looked at Rongxiu. Rongxiu's thin scarlet lips curled up slightly. He walked over with a faint smile. I'm really not sure. Some time ago, she was in a coma. When she woke up, she said she wanted to go to Mount Pengmin. Other than that, there didn't seem to be anything unusual. As for what she remembered and how much she remembered, she refused to tell me, so I can't guess. Of course, he knew that Chu Luiyue remembered a lot of things. Otherwise, she wouldn't have directly asked to go to Mount Pengmin and be so sure that he was willing to help. But, she didn't seem to want to lay her cards on the table. He simply didn't ask. Dugu Mabao was silent for a moment. Let her be. During this period of time, there will be a lot of trouble coming to the door. She can also avoid it. I think so too. Rongxiu nodded. With the support of the academy, I think those people won't be able to cause much trouble. But, are you sure the situation on your side is okay? Otherwise, Dugu Mabao frowned. With such a serious expression on her chubby, white, and tender little face, it was always easy for people to fall out of character. Fortunately, other than himself, only Rongxiu was here. No need. Dugu Mabao picked up his teacup. Lingxiao College suffered a lot in this trip to the northern region of the untainted land, and there will be a lot of trouble later. Keep an eye on them. Don't worry about that. Rongxiu smiled. No matter what, Yuntian Tower and I will always be with Lingxiao College. Upon hearing this, Dugu Mabao was relieved. Although he had always been very picky about Rongxiu, relatively speaking, among these people, Rongxiu was considered more reliable. The room fell into a brief silence. I have to make a trip back to the Red Moon Desert. Dugu Mabao said. There seems to be a problem on Diwu's side. Thinking about it, he had already been out for quite some time. It was time to go back and take a look. He could almost imagine how Lan Xiao had scolded him behind his back. At first, he was a little worried, but now that Chu Luiyue had gone to Mount Pengmin, he might not be out for a while. He could take this opportunity to go back. Please be careful. Rongxiu nodded and asked again. When are you leaving? Today. Dugu Mabao had always been a person who paid attention to efficiency. Rongxiu paused. Then Elder Bo Yen. He seems to have noticed something. Dugu Mabao took a sip of tea and then said casually, just let it be. Don't worry about it. Anyway, they would not be able to find out anything in a short time. Seeing Dugu Mabao say this, Rongxiu did not ask any more. Then please be careful. Dugu Mabao put down the teacup and walked forward. When he walked to the middle of the room, he stopped. Bang! A small flame suddenly ignited on his robes. Wherever the flame passed, the mottled bloodstains disappeared, and his robe was brand new. Under the light of the flame, it emitted an extremely faint light like scales. In a short while, he had already returned to his normal appearance. Then, he waved his hand. The void shook. A crack in space appeared out of nowhere. Dugu Mabao suddenly turned around and looked at Rongxiu. During this period, I'll leave you, to you. You must take good care of her. Rongxiu smiled. Rongxiu has a duty. I will do my best. Of course, he would dote on his princess consort. Dugu Mabao choked, snorted, and stepped in. His small figure instantly disappeared from the room. The crack in space quickly recovered, and even the energy fluctuations in the room quickly calmed down. Everything was quiet and peaceful as if nothing had happened. Rongxiu stood quietly on the spot for a while. Just as he was about to turn around and go back, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. He raised his eyebrows slightly and looked out the window. An extremely faint and cold smile seemed to flash across his face. Interesting, it seemed that those people had already gone to the Yuntian Tower and planned to make them take the blame together. Shue shue! Rongxiu suddenly shouted. Shue shue, who had automatically disappeared for a long time, finally appeared. A snow-white head poked out from behind the screen. Go back to the Yuntian Tower first. Xue Xue's eyes, which were originally filled with hope, suddenly dimmed. Go back? What's so good about going back? My dear Yu is here. Although I can't see her, at least we're in the same place. If I go back, who knows when I'll see her again. Rong Xiu glanced at it with a cold gaze. Patriarch is finally coming out of seclusion. I have to go and express my gratitude. Xue Xue's eyes flashed with surprise. Coming out of seclusion? Didn't he? Meeting Rong Xiu's gaze, Xue Xue suppressed the doubts in its heart, sneezed, and left obediently. When its figure disappeared, Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly. He actually came out of seclusion. That's really, even more exciting. Digression. It's the last day, mobile users. Please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1409. The Liang family rushed to the Yuntian Tower as fast as they could and bumped into Jiang Hetian, who was about to leave. When enemies met, their eyes blazed with hatred. Because of Liang Shaokang's death, Liang Ye and Liang Xiaoxiao now viewed everyone in the Tomb of Immortal Water as their enemy. Among them was the head of the Jiang family, Jiang Hetian. Seeing their aggressive approach, Jiang Hetian already understood 70% to 80% of what was going on. Before he came, he had already asked Jiang Jiwan to tell him everything that had happened in the northern region of the wilderness. Jiang Jiwan also knew that only her father could be relied on at this time, so she told him everything. Liang Shaokang's matter was also included. Head of the Liang family. Jiang Hetian cupped his hands politely. However, the other party didn't buy it. He scanned the surroundings and found that Jiang Hetian was the only one here. Jiang Jiwan was nowhere to be seen. His heart sank. Where's Jiang Jiwan? You're asking about my daughter? Oh, she just entered the Yuntian Tower with 36 revered elders Ming and Yujing to accompany the head of the family at Wanzhong Mountain. Jiang Hetian played it down. However, his words revealed an important piece of information. Jiang Jiwan was now under the protection of the Yuntian Tower. Liang Ye and his daughter's expressions changed slightly. They had hurried over because they were afraid of such a situation. They didn't expect, this is really strange. Jiang Jiwan has already been expelled from Lingxiao College. Logically speaking, the Yuntian Tower wouldn't accept her at this time, right? Why would they? Let her in. Liang Xiaoxiao didn't have that much patience and directly said coldly. Jiang Hetian was displeased, but he could only endure the other party's status and laugh. Although Ziyuan is my daughter, she grew up in the Yuntian Tower and has a close relationship with the head of the family. The revered elders of the Yuntian Tower have always treated her as their closest junior. What's so strange about this? Liang Xiaoxiao sneered. Was Jiang Jiwan worthy? The patriarch of the Yuntian Tower was still in closed-door training. It was impossible for him to speak up for Jiang Jiwan. Moreover, things were different now. Right now, Yuntian Ke had a real princess consort overseeing it. There was no room for Jiang Jiwan to jump around. I really don't know what kind of tricks that the *TCH used, Patriarch Liang. If you want to see Ziyuan, it's not impossible. You can just ask the guard to report it. However, Ziyuan came here this time to accompany the patriarch out of seclusion. Whether she could come out or not was another matter. Now that the matter had been settled, Jiang Hetian's courage was greatly relieved. Liang Xiaoxiao was furious and was about to step forward. Xiaoxiao. Liang Ye was rather calm as he called out to her in a deep voice. Only then did Liang Xiaoxiao manage to suppress the anger in her heart. Since she has already entered the Yuntian Tower, we shall not disturb her any further. Liang Ye was very decisive. The Yuntian Tower should know the consequences of doing this. But they still did it. There must be something fishy going on. Dad, Liang Xiaoxiao was unwilling. Liang Ye looked at her meaningfully and turned to leave. Liang Xiaoxiao stomped her feet and quickly followed. Jiang Hetian looked at their backs as they returned in defeat. His hanging heart was finally relieved. No matter what, they had avoided a lot of trouble this time. With the Yintian Tower, their immortal water mausoleum would not have any problems. Dad, why did you stop me just now? I want to ask those people in the Yintian Tower if there's something wrong with their brains. How could such a B***tch deserve their protection? On the way back, Liang Xiaoxiao was still angry. In comparison, Liang Ye was much calmer. You even know this, do you think those people in the Yintian Tower don't know? Liang Xiaoxiao was stunned. You mean, the father and daughter of the Jiang family obviously have other cards up their sleeves to make the Yintian Tower compromise for them? I just don't know, what is it? Liang Ye murmured, puzzled. Xiaoxiao, you used to have a good relationship with her. Do you know anything? Liang Xiaoxiao sneered. She's a person who only thinks for herself and is very careful. If she really had such a powerful card up her sleeve, do you think she would let me know? Liang Ye frowned. If that's the case, it'll be difficult to find trouble with her. Who knows when the leader of the Yintian Tower will come out of seclusion? Besides, if he comes out of seclusion, what will happen if he protects Jiang Ji1 even more? Liang Xiaoxiao was silent for a while before she said, strange. In the end, Jiang Ji1 is just a subordinate of the Yintian Tower. How did she get to such a position? I heard that the leader of the Yintian Tower doted on her since she was very young and specially brought her to the Yintian Tower to raise her. If not for that, she would not have been so successful. Liang Ye shook his head. I'm afraid only they know the answer to this mystery. Then father, what should we do next? We can't just let her go like this, right? Liang Xiaoxiao would never be willing to do this. Liang Ye pondered for a long time. Send someone to investigate first and see if we can find any evidence. Also, many people have been investigating Chu Yu recently. What do you know about him? Chu Yu? Isn't he on good terms with Rongxiu? But I don't know anything else. Although Chu Yu's name had been very famous in the academy during this period of time, his background was indeed a mystery. It seems that Rongxiu wants to protect him. However, I heard that Chu Yu broke through from the 8th stage to the 9th stage in just a few days in the northern part of the Great Desolate Land and was even taken away by a group of mysterious people. You should know that quite a number of aristocratic families have suffered losses in that place this time. How could they be satisfied if they couldn't get the heavenly square cauldron? Perhaps, in the end, this trouble would still fall on Chu Yu's head. Liang Ye pondered for a long time. Go back to the academy first and see what's going on with Chu Yu. I'll go ask the other aristocratic families and see what they plan to do. Maybe we can find some clues related to Shao Kong from them. Although Liang Xiaoxiao wanted to deal with Jiang Ji1 immediately, she knew that with the Yintian Tower's help, this was not something that could be solved in a day or two. For now, she could only plan for the long term. Okay. Lingxiao College. Donghuang Clock Tower. Elder Bo Yen was sitting alone in the room with a thick book in his hand. Ever since the dean left, the school's name list had been kept by him. On it, the names of every elder and student in Lingxiao College for 10,000 years were recorded. Of course, there were also the previous deans. He stared at the totem on the book for a long time before he finally took a deep breath and chose to open it. On the title page, the names of every dean were recorded. His eyes swept across the book one by one and finally stopped at the top. There was no name, only a piece of purple scale armor. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 14:10. That purple scale was only the size of a fingernail and was faintly glowing. Upon closer inspection, there were slightly undulating carvings on it. It was the totem of Lingxiao College. And this scale was left behind by the first dean of Lingxiao College. Unlike the other deans, this deans did not leave behind their names. Instead, they only used a piece of scale to reveal their identity. In reality, although Lingxiao College was the #1 college in the Divine Ruins world and was famous, no one knew the real name of its first dean. Back then, when he traveled the continent, he used many aliases, but no one knew which one was real and which one was fake. After establishing Lingxiao College, the world only called him Dean. 10,000 years had passed, and the world had changed. Things remained the same, but people had changed. The legends and rumors about that person had mostly been buried in the long years and were no longer mentioned. Only the dean of Lingxiao College, Li, had the chance to know the real name of that person. Although Elder Bo Yan was now in charge of everything in the college, he still did not have the authority to see the name under the purple scale. He stared at it for a while, then shifted his gaze and looked at the last name on the page. This person was also at a loss and no one knew where he was. "Dean, you have to come back quickly." Elder Bo Yan could not help but sigh. Knock knock. The sound of knocking suddenly came, interrupting Elder Bo Yan's thoughts. "Bo Yan, something happened." This was Elder Wenxi's voice, with a rare anxiety and nervousness. Elder Bo Yan's heart sank slightly. He closed the book and carefully kept it before getting up to open the door. The moment the door opened, he met Elder Wenxi's worried eyes. "What's wrong?" He had never seen such an expression on Elder Wenxi's face before. Elder Wenxi swallowed his saliva with difficulty. "They're here." "They?" "Those first-rate families and clans that went to the northern region of the Great Desolate Land before." Elder Wenxi spoke very quickly. "They said that they have something to ask Chu Yu and want us to hand Chu Yu over." Ridiculous. Elder Bo Yan was enraged. This whole thing was carefully planned by someone behind the scenes. They can't find the mastermind, so they came to find trouble with Chu Yu? This was completely unreasonable. Bo Yan, Elder Wenxi took a deep breath. Every family has people who died in those 9 valleys. You also know that Chu Yu is the only one who entered those valleys and clearly benefited from it. They think that Chu Yu should give an explanation for this matter. Strictly speaking, Jiang Jiwan had been there before. But not long after she entered, she was chased out by Chu Yu. This was something that many people had seen clearly at that time. And it was also after that, it was unknown what Chu Yu did, but he sealed the barrier, making it impossible for others to enter. These were all facts that could not be changed no matter what. For them to push the blame onto Chu Yu, it seemed like it wasn't completely without basis. Otherwise, they would not have joined forces and forced their way to the entrance of Lingxiao College. Elder Bo Yan frowned. He hadn't seen these things with his own eyes, but he had heard Elder Hua Feng mention it before. At that time, he vaguely felt that something was wrong. Now, trouble had indeed come. "I'll meet them personally." Fang State City. The streets that used to be bustling with noise and excitement were now empty and silent. Only the area connected to the Spirit Firmament Academy's enchantment was covered in darkness. Everyone in the city heard the news and went back to hide carefully. They were afraid that this storm would affect them. There were only a few dozen people standing here, but the forces behind them were all first-rate families and clans in the Divine Ruins world. With a casual stomp of their feet, they could shake the entire Divine Ruins world. Ordinary people naturally couldn't dodge in time. But in their hearts, they also had doubts. They didn't know what had happened to make these people choose to join forces and challenge Lingxiao College. This was the first time in 100 years. Everyone stood in one place, each of them silent. The atmosphere was oppressive, and the air was condensed. It was almost suffocating. Not far away, the elders in charge of guarding the barrier also had solemn expressions. The confrontation between the two sides was about to break out. When Elder Bo Yan rushed over, this was the scene he saw. Even though his heart was burning with anger, he had no choice but to suppress it at this moment. He took a deep breath and was about to walk out of the barrier. Bo Yan, Elder Wenxi and the others hesitated and called out to him. They didn't come with good intentions. It would be dangerous to go out rashly. Elder Bo Yan gave them a reassuring look. These people just wanted to use this formation to force them to hand over Chu Yu. They didn't really want to completely fall out with Lingxiao College. Now that he represented the entire school, they didn't dare to do anything to him. After comforting them, Elder Bo Yen stepped out of the barrier. He stood in front of the barrier, cupped his hands at everyone, and said with a smile, "You all came from afar, why didn't you greet us in advance? What if we neglect you?" As he spoke, he had already quietly swept his gaze across the faces of these people. Most of them were familiar faces. Many of them had personal grudges against each other. And now, they were all standing on the same side to force them to hand over Chu Yu. How laughable. Elder Bo Yen, we're all old acquaintances. Let's not beat around the bush. A middle-aged man spoke. I believe you already know why we're here today. It's up to you whether you want to let him go or not. Elder Bo Yen laughed, but there was no trace of a smile in his eyes. Since that's the case, I won't say any more nonsense. But if you want my Lingxiao College to hand him over, you must have a reason, right? Reason? Elder Bo Yen, you should know this reason too, right? Do you dare to say that Chu Yu really has no problems with the matter of the primordial north? Another younger man raised his voice and spoke with a hint of viciousness in his eyes. So many people died, and only Chu Yu benefited a lot. Moreover, it's obvious that he has something to do with the canyon. You'd better let him come out and explain it to us personally. Elder Bo Yen frowned slightly and took another look at the young man. With so many people working together, their strength was strong. Even these people started to set up the height of heaven and depth of earth. Chu Yu is a student of my Lingxiao College. If he really did something wrong, we won't let him off. But if someone wants to slander and bully him, we won't agree either. Elder Bo Yan's voice wasn't loud, but his words were sonorous. His words were naturally filled with a tyrannical aura. The scene immediately became much quieter. Then, he stroked his beard and said slowly, "Moreover, you all came at a bad time. He was just locked up in Mount Pengmin. I'm afraid he won't be able to come out in the short term. Digression, I'll go have a meal first and continue at 6 in the afternoon. I've been running outside every day for the past 2 days and slept for 4 to 5 hours a day. I was so muddled that I thought it was my last day. Yesterday, I couldn't hold on any longer and took medicine to force myself to sleep early. When I woke up, I felt much better. Today is also the day I'm going to add more chapters. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 14:11. The moment he said that, everyone was in an uproar. He did not send him in earlier or later, but just had to lock him in at this time. Wasn't this clearly protecting him to the end? Elder Bo Yen, if I remember correctly, that Pengmin Mountain seems to be a place that Lingxiao College specially uses to punish students who have made mistakes. Why was Chu Yu locked up for no reason? A somewhat ear-piercing voice sounded. The scene was silent for a moment. Every pair of eyes looked at Elder Bo Yen suspiciously and inquisitively. Elder Bo Yen stroked his beard. He did indeed violate a few of the school's rules. Originally, he should have been locked up immediately after returning. But at that time, he was in a coma, so we let it go. We only sent him over when he woke up and his body was better. The other party did not let it go. Oh. Then I wonder if it's convenient for Elder Bo Yen to reveal which rules Chu Yu violated? So that we can all know a little. Hearing this, the smile on Elder Bo Yan's face faded. This is my Lingxiao College's matter. Whether it's a reward or punishment, it seems. It has nothing to do with outsiders, and there's no need to explain to outsiders, right? They were just a little low-key usually, but it did not mean that the current Lingxiao College could be bullied by others. If everyone wanted to interfere in their school's matters, wouldn't it be chaotic? Elder Bo Yan's words made everyone unable to refute. Now that he was in charge of the entire Lingxiao College, whoever he said was wrong was wrong. If he wanted to punish someone, it was indeed not up to others to interfere. Sensing the cold anger in Elder Bo Yan's words, the other party shut his mouth embarrassedly. However, the others did not intend to let it go. Elder Bo Yan, we have no intention of interfering in your school's matters. But regarding Chu Yu's matter, we must seek an explanation this time. That's right. We have known each other for many years, and you know that we are not unreasonable people. If not for the fact that we had no choice, we would not want to offend your school and come so rashly. Now, there's really no other way. In the northern region of the primordial world, every family has suffered heavy losses, and only Chu Yu has benefited from it. It really makes people suspicious. Actually, Elder Bo Yan, you don't have to be so nervous. As long as you let Chu Yu come over and explain the situation clearly in front of everyone, it will be fine. This way, we can talk things out. It's good for everyone, don't you think? These people spoke one after another, and said a lot of things. However, Elder Bo Yan only laughed coldly in his heart. He had lived for so many years, what had he not seen before? Hearing this, these people were indeed quite considerate. But in reality, that was not the case at all. If they really wanted to reason things out like this, they wouldn't have come all the way to Fangzhou City and put on such a show. In other words, the knife was already on his shoulder. If he pretended that he wanted to communicate properly, would it be believable? How laughable. Elder Bo Yan was also very magnanimous. Although he was indignant in his heart, his expression did not change much, and he restrained himself from being polite. As the other party spoke, he listened. It wasn't until the other party had spoken until their mouths were dry and their tongues were dry that he nodded his head unhurriedly. Everyone's words are very reasonable. Many people's eyes lit up. However, Elder Bo Yan changed the topic. This old man also has some things to say to all of you. The primordial northern region is very dangerous. Since ancient times, who knows how many experts have gone there but never returned. When all of you brought people there previously, you should have understood this point, right? Not to mention all of you, even my Lingxiao College was in danger this time. We lost 3 elders and several students. You came to my Lingxiao College to ask for an explanation, then, who should we look for? Everyone was speechless. Moreover, when all of you were willing to take the risk to go to the primordial northern region at the beginning, it should have been because of the heavenly square cauldron. Now, everything has been proven. This is just a piece of fake news deliberately released by someone. The purpose is to lure everyone there, and then to cause harm. You did not investigate who the mastermind behind this is, but instead came to my Ling Shao Academy to question a teenager? Do you think that all of this was planned by him? Some people's expressions had already begun to turn ugly. This old man knows why all of you are only targeting Chu Yu. It's because he obtained some opportunities in the primordial northern region, and you think that there's something wrong with him. But luck was something that could never be predicted. Just because he had coincidentally obtained something, he had to be attacked by a group of people. Wasn't this a little too unfair? You might not know, but Chu Yu originally did not go to the primordial northern region this time. It was only later that someone used some methods to lure Hua Feng and the others there that he followed. Elder Bo Yan laughed, his old and deep gaze swept across the crowd. There's one last point. This old man wants to ask all of you, if you want to find Chu Yu for an explanation, can you take out any evidence to prove that the deaths of your people have anything to do with Chu Yu? As soon as he finished speaking, the entire place fell silent. In fact, how could they not know that they were just relying on their numbers to make trouble for no reason? In the end, they were just angry. However, they could not find the culprit and could only find a soft persimmon to pinch. Everyone thought that Lingxiao College would hand Chu Yu over on account of them coming forward together. However, they did not expect Elder Bo Yan's attitude to be so unyielding. No matter what, he wanted to protect Chu Yu. This made some people start to suspect Chu Yu's identity. After a moment of stalemate, Elder Bo Yan softened his tone and said amiably, actually, this old man can understand everyone's feelings. After all, it's not easy for any aristocratic family to nurture an expert. Furthermore, everyone suffered heavy losses in the primordial northern region. Why don't we join forces to investigate this matter first? There's strength in numbers. Perhaps we can find something. Also, after a period of time, when Chuyu comes out of Mount Pengmin, let him explain it to everyone. Elder Bo Yen retreated in order to advance and gave them a way out. Many people hesitated. They did not want to make things too ugly with Lingxiao College. If they could discuss and resolve it, it would naturally be best. Furthermore, even if Chuyu could hide in Lingxiao College for a while, it was impossible for him to not come out for the rest of his life. As long as they wanted to find him, there would always be a chance. Since Elder Bo Yen had already said so, perhaps they should take a step back. If that's the case, then, I'm afraid that won't work. An opposing voice suddenly sounded. Elder Bo Yen frowned and looked over. The person who spoke was Jean D. Elder Bo Yen, everyone here came from afar just to let Chuyu come out and explain the matter clearly. If we go back now, who knows how long we will have to wait. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 14:12. Elder Bo Yan's voice turned cold. But Chuyu has been locked up in Min Mountain. Isn't it up to you to decide whether to lock him up or not? Jean D rubbed his chin and smiled sinisterly. Could it be that with so many of us here, we can't even invite him? He didn't care what the others thought. Since he was here today, he wouldn't be sent away so easily. Others might be afraid of offending Lingxiao College, but he wasn't. After all, they already had a grudge against each other. Jean D's words made those who were wavering change their minds again. That's right. They had spent a lot of effort to come here. If they just let it go, wouldn't it be a waste of effort? Jean D's words make sense. Elder Bo Yen, for the sake of the big picture, why don't you let Chuyu come over first? That's right. Since everyone is here, they can't do anything to him. What's more, he should know the most. Wouldn't it be more efficient to ask him directly instead of us investigating like headless flies? Everyone's emotions were stirred up again. Elder Bo Yen put his hands behind his back and clenched them into fists. These people, it wouldn't be easy to get rid of them. His gaze turned cold. Just as he was about to speak, a low and pleasant voice came from behind him. Chuyu can't come over for the time being. If you have any questions, just ask me. Everyone looked at the person who came. There was a moment of silence. The man who slowly walked over was tall and slender, handsome and enchanting. From top to bottom, from inside to outside, he seemed to have restrained all the elegance in the world. There wasn't a spot that wasn't perfect. He was really elegant and charming. Elder Bo Yen was stunned. Rongxiu. Why are you here? Rongxiu's thin scarlet lips curled into a faint smile. It's rare to be so lively here. Besides, it's not easy to see so many important people in the Divine Ruins world at once. I naturally have to come and take a look. What he said was, This Highness. He wasn't speaking as a student of the school, but as the saint of Yuntian Tower. Elder Bo Yan's eyes flickered. Rongxiu had already walked forward. His cold and indifferent gaze swept across the crowd. Everyone had different expressions. Most of them had never seen Rongxiu before. The famous holy son of the Yuntian Tower had only taken a few years to reach his current position. Moreover, he had always been elusive. In the Divine Ruins world, there were many first-rate families, and the distance between them was very far. If there was no big matter, they would basically not frequent each other. Naturally, there was no chance for them to meet in person. Now that he looked at it, it was indeed a well-deserved reputation. Although he was young, the aura he exuded didn't lose out in the slightest when compared to these people who had rebuked the heavens and earth for many years. Rongxiu, from what you said, you can speak on behalf of Chuyu? Golden Flute's voice was full of doubt. So, you know everything that happened to him in the northern region of Untainted Land? You can explain everything clearly? Rong Xiu smiled and asked in return, "Are you questioning I?" Golden Flute choked. Just as he was about to angrily retort, he met Rong Xiu's eyes that were as deep as an icy pond. In an instant, a chill suddenly surged in his heart, and most of his anger was inexplicably extinguished. That disdainful and indifferent gaze suddenly reminded him, according to the other party's status, he was indeed qualified to speak to him like this. Rong Xiu was the holy son of the Yuntian Tower. Most importantly, he now held great power in his hands. Only the sect master of the Golden Wings sect could be on equal footing with him. And he, Golden Flute, absolutely did not have this qualification. Even if he was old and experienced, it was still not enough. The atmosphere became somewhat stiff and strange. They might have dared to threaten Elder Bo Yen, but they didn't dare to treat Rong Xiu like this. Because Elder Bo Yen didn't dare to bet the entire academy, but Rong Xiu could raise the power of the Yuntian Tower and fight to the death with them. This was a ruthless character who killed without batting an eyelid. Over the years, there were many rumors about this holy son, and most of them were filled with bloodshed and brutality. He could even wipe out one of the 28 divisions of the Yuntian Tower, the unparalleled palace, let alone others. After a while, someone finally asked awkwardly, "Rong Xiu, now, with what identity are you answering these questions on behalf of Chu Yu?" Everyone's ears perked up. Even Elder Bo Yan's heart tightened. This question was actually asking about the relationship between the two of them. Rong Xiu's answer would determine how they would treat Chu Yu in the future, so it was very important. In the silence, Rong Xiu's sword-like eyebrows raised slightly, and the corners of his lips curled into a slight smile. "If I must give a title, I am her direct relative. Now, if you have any questions, you can ask." Red Moon Desert. It was currently daytime, and the scorching sun was overhead. Yellow sand billowed, and the air seemed to be distorted by the heat waves. A petite and vigorous figure suddenly appeared on the sand dune. Suddenly, the surrounding yellow sand rapidly gathered, and in the blink of an eye, it formed several sand balls. They flew towards that person from all directions. Swoosh! That figure instantly disappeared from where she was. These sand balls collided with each other and quickly dispersed. In the next moment, on another sand dune dozens of miles away, that figure appeared again. Poof! A fist formed by yellow sand suddenly appeared from the void, and went straight for that person's back. However, that person seemed to have eyes at the back of her head. She bent her waist and quickly pounced forward. She narrowly avoided this attack. At the same time, her feet moved quickly, and she immediately kicked with her long legs. Bang! The fist formed by yellow sand was instantly kicked to pieces. Only then did that figure finally heave a sigh of relief. She straightened her body and smiled brightly, her almond-shaped eyes sparkling. This person was Mu Hongyu, who had been specially sent here by Chu Lua to cultivate. After staying here for a few months, her originally fair face had been tanned to a weak color. The daily high-load training almost left her no time to rest, but fortunately, she gritted her teeth and persevered. "Senior Diwu, this time, I finally passed the test, right?" Digression: after a meal, I will continue at about 9 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 14:13. Only the heavens knew how much she had suffered for this day. However, what comforted her was that her strength had also increased rapidly in this process. Just yesterday, she had broken through to become a rank 9 warrior. It was also because of this that she was able to deal with such a difficult and complicated test so easily today. Before coming here, even she herself did not expect that she would be able to complete such a huge breakthrough in such a short period of time. Not bad. Fifth Elder's smiling voice sounded. Not far away, faint ripples appeared on the clear lake. After breaking through to rank 9, your strength has increased a lot. To you, all of this is no longer a big deal. After receiving the affirmation, Mu Hongyu's smile became even brighter. Thank you, Senior Diwu. Then, she blinked and asked apprehensively, "What's the matter? You said before that as long as I pass the test, you will send me to see Lu Yu, haha. I knew you were going to mention this. Don't worry, I will never go back on my promise to you." Fifth elder answered very straightforwardly. "It's just that this matter can't be rushed. We have to wait for an opportunity first." Mu Hongyu was a little confused. Opportunity? What kind of opportunity? At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air suddenly came from the sky. She looked back. A purple light flew over from the horizon. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of her. Mu Hongyu widened her eyes slightly, feeling that this aura was very familiar. Wait! Isn't this, swoosh? Before she could see clearly, the other party had already disappeared in a flash. Only an afterimage was left as it gradually dissipated. A soft sound came from the lake not far away. Mu Hongyu subconsciously held her breath. This should be that person returning, right? But why doesn't Lu Yu seem to be with him? Mu Hongyu scanned her surroundings with uncertainty. Indeed, she did not see that familiar figure and was a little disappointed. "Hongyu, go and rest first." Diwu Zhang's voice sounded. Mu Hongyu was a little confused, but she still obediently agreed. Yes. She glanced in the direction of the lake a few times before her figure flashed and disappeared into the void. Under the lake, there was an extremely hidden space. The four walls were made of black iron, and each wall was engraved with strange patterns that emitted rays of light. These lights intertwined and overlapped with each other, forming a huge and complicated rune. A heavy pressure continuously spread out from within. It could almost crush everything. Under the rune, two illusory figures were suppressed. It was Diwu Zhangze and Lan Xiao. The runes pierced through their heads and bodies, nailing them to the ground. Apart from the night of the Scarlet Moon, none of them could leave this place. This was a cage. Purple light flickered. Dugu Mabao's figure gradually appeared. His gaze swept across the two of them calmly, and when he saw Lan Xiao, he frowned. This was because Lan Xiao's figure was obviously much more illusory than Diwu Zhang's, and his aura was weak. Furthermore, half of his handsome face had festered away. He was sitting cross-legged with his brows tightly knitted. He didn't look well. "Biyao, you're finally back." Diwu Zhangze let out a long sigh. "What's wrong with him?" Dugu Mabao asked in a low voice. Lan Xiao valued his face the most, and he definitely wouldn't allow his face to become like this. Clearly, something must have happened. Diwu Zhangze sighed helplessly. "It's all because he wants to leave this place. After you left, he also wanted to forcefully reconstruct his divine body, but he didn't succeed, and became like this." Lan Zhao's strength wasn't comparable to Dugu Mabao's. Dugu Mabao had failed once, but he still had the ability to try a second time, but Lan Xiao couldn't. Furthermore, Dugu Mabao only succeeded because of Rong Xiu and Chu Liuyue's help. How could Lan Xiao succeed when he was fighting alone? Stupid. Impulsive. Dugu Mabao was also angry. Doesn't he know how dangerous it is to do this? He's waited for so many years, what's the difference in time? Diwu Zhangze smiled bitterly and shook his head. "I also advised him, but, you fought with someone before, right?" Dugu Mabao paused. "I've already blocked the news. As long as you fight, the other party will notice. It's just a matter of time." Diwu Zhangze interrupted Dugu Mabao, which was rare. "If you weren't in big trouble, you definitely wouldn't have fought so easily." Lan Xiao was anxious, so Dugu Mabao was silent for a moment. "I didn't think it through. The situation was too urgent, so I didn't care about that." "You've always been cautious, so how could you not care? You must have been in a desperate situation, so you had no choice." They had known each other for many years and knew each other very well. Others might believe these words, but they couldn't fool the other party. There was a moment of silence. Dugu Mabao said, "Forget it. We'll talk about this later. Let's heal him first." Diwu Zhangzi nodded. During this period, he had put in a lot of effort to stabilize Lan Zhao's injuries. However, without a divine body, there was a limit to what he could do. He could only rely on Duge Mabao. By the way, how's you, Diwu Zhangzi asked with concern. They had been gone for a few months, and he didn't know how they were doing over there. Duge Mabao's eyebrows twitched slightly. She should be breaking through to the God realm soon. Lingxiao College. Chu Luiyue was unaware of everything that was happening in the outside world. Her eyes were tightly shut, and she seemed to have entered a strange state. The aura on her body was also rising at an alarming speed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1414. Elder Meng, who was sitting cross-legged on the top floor, suddenly opened his eyes, his face full of surprise. That kid. How is his cultivation speed so fast? It hasn't been long since he came in, how is his aura so much stronger? Elder Meng faintly felt that something was wrong. He retracted the horsetail whisk floating in front of him, got up and walked outside, wanting to go down and see for himself. Just as he took 2 steps, he paused and turned back to take a look. In the empty room, the door floated quietly. It looked no different from before. As for that unsettling commotion, it didn't appear again. There shouldn't be any more problems, right? He thought silently. Suppressing the uneasiness in his heart, Elder Meng turned around and went downstairs. His figure quickly disappeared. A strange pattern flashed on the door that was floating in the air all by itself. It disappeared in the blink of an eye. The tower on Mount Pengmin had a total of 7 floors. Elder Meng usually stayed on the top floor. He would only come down when there were some special circumstances. However, there were not many such opportunities. Especially, and it was because of a student. Elder Meng went down the stairs, his footsteps were silent, and he did not cause any commotion. When he reached the 2nd floor, he finally stopped for a short while and looked down at the young man sitting cross-legged in the middle of the room. The young man had his eyes closed, his face was calm, and he did not move at all. Compared to before, there did not seem to be any changes. However, there was a faint surge of force around him. It seemed like it was about to boil. This was a fluctuation that would only appear when a cultivator was madly devouring force and his strength was rapidly increasing. Elder Meng frowned slightly. Although the force of heaven and earth in the tower was considered rich, it did not seem to be to this extent. He stared at it for a while, and only then did he see something fishy. A portion of the origin power surging in Chu Yu's body seemed to have erupted from within his body. He was absorbing the force of the outside world while digging out the stored force in his body and completely fusing it with himself. Attacking both internally and externally, this allowed him to rapidly increase his strength. Elder Meng narrowed his eyes. It seemed that this kid was quite capable. Earlier, he felt that Chu Yu was not as simple as he seemed. From the looks of it now, it was indeed so. Suddenly, a beautiful ray of light flew out from Chu Yu's left palm. A powerful pressure spread out in all directions. Wang. Elder Meng widened his eyes slightly. That is, divine power? He had long known about the fact that Chu Yu had a strand of divine power in his body. But the current situation, Chu Yu wanted to fuse with this divine power? Elder Meng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the past few months since Chu Yu had entered Lingxiao College, his strength had increased extremely quickly. After returning from the northern region of the Great Desolate Land, he had directly broken through to the 9th stage. But, in the end, the 9th step was only the 9th step. Only deities could fuse divine power. Chu Yu was still far away from this step. Elder Meng couldn't help but shake his head. Looks like this kid's heart is really big. It was true that he wanted to become stronger, but he had to be reasonable, right? He's still a young and impetuous child after all. After watching for a while, Elder Meng felt that his inexplicable worries and uneasiness were unnecessary. He thought for a moment and decided not to disturb him. Young people had to suffer some losses to grow up. He'd better go busy himself with his own matters first. Thinking of this, Elder Meng turned around and returned. Just like when he came, he was still light and silent. That beautiful light circled around Chu Liyue's palm. The brilliant light shone on her face, making her skin as clear as white porcelain. In her body, countless forces surged in her Yuan meridian, almost whistling like the wind. Her body seemed to be surrounded by warm spring water. Heat and origin power spread through every part of her body and nourished her silently. Every inch of her bones and flesh was undergoing an astonishing change in silence. At a certain moment, she opened her eyes. When she saw that she was still in that strange square space, Chu Liyue knew that she didn't see this with her eyes. A bright light flickered in front of her. The beautiful light made it look very moving. That was a strand of divine power stored in her body. Chu Liyue was a little surprised. She didn't know why it ran out on its own. But, she suddenly had an idea in her mind. If she could completely integrate this divine power, it would be very beneficial to her cultivation. Somehow, as if she had been imprinted, Chu Liyue raised her hand and grabbed that ball of light. The light was like quicksand, flowing through the gaps between her fingers. It was impossible for a rank 9 warrior to devour divine power. Chu Liyue suddenly came back to her senses. She laughed at herself and was about to retract her hand. But at this moment, there was a sudden movement on the wall in front of her. She seemed to have sensed something and looked up. All of a sudden, those strange lines began to move. They gathered together and formed a strange pattern in the blink of an eye. Chu Liyue looked at it and frowned. She felt that this pattern was a little familiar. The next moment, that ball of divine power suddenly floated toward the pattern. The pattern rotated gently. Every line was exquisite and beautiful, elegant and agile. And in this process, that ball of divine power was silently crushed. It turned into specks of starlight. Whoosh, a gentle breeze blew, and those starlights surged like a tide, flying toward Chu Liyue and merging into every part of her body. Chu Liyue was stunned for a moment, and a deep shock surged in her eyes. This space, actually erased the divine sense of that divine power so easily and belonged to her. Digression. Tomorrow at 12:00 today is the last day. Please give me a monthly rating, moi. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 14:16. Boom. A loud sound suddenly came from one of the nearby mountain peaks. Luo Yanlin and the others looked over in shock. What's going on? Luo Yanlin gestured for the two of them to calm down as he took a few steps forward to take a closer look. Halfway up the opposite mountain, a cave collapsed with a loud rumble. A few boulders rolled down, stirring up a cloud of dust and almost sealing the cave entrance. That's Lin Qifei's residence. Luo Yanming also came over. After taking a closer look, she frowned. He seems to have been cultivating in seclusion recently. I don't know what happened, but he actually caused such a huge commotion. Lin Qifei was one of the most outstanding students that the academy had recruited in the past 6 months. In addition, he was also a mystic master, so Luo Yanming had been paying attention to him. Lin Qifei? Luo Yanlin raised his eyebrows. I haven't seen him in a while. Lin Qifei didn't follow the academy to the primeval north and had been cultivating peacefully in the academy. Especially after he defeated Jiang Ji1 in public, he stayed in his residence and didn't come out much. He was very low-key. Many people couldn't figure out what Lin Qifei was thinking, including Luo Yanming. Later, he wanted to spar with him several times, but he couldn't find a suitable opportunity. Did something happen to him? Should we go over and take a look? Luo Shishir asked worriedly. Judging from the commotion, it didn't seem like he was fine. Luo Yanlin was about to move when he suddenly paused. No need. As soon as he said that, the pile of boulders was suddenly pushed aside. A thin and tall figure walked out from within. It was Lin Qifei, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. His face and body were covered in dust, and there seemed to be blood at the corner of his mouth. He looked a little haggard. He seemed to be choking on the dust and coughed as he walked. However, Luo Shishir and the others were relieved. Looks like he's fine, Luo Shishir heaved a sigh of relief. Although they weren't familiar with each other, they were all classmates. Naturally, they didn't want to see anything happen to him. Especially since Lin Qifei was more talented than a Xian master. Wouldn't it be a pity if something happened to him? Suddenly, Luo Yanlin's eyes narrowed as he stared at Lin Qifei. Fourth brother, what's wrong? Luo Shishir and the other two sensed that something was wrong and looked at him strangely. This Lin Qifei, Luo Yanlin said hesitantly, as if he was guessing something. His eyes were surging with emotions. If I'm not mistaken, the fluctuation coming from the cave seems to be the movement caused by the construction of a teleportation array? Although it was very subtle, his strength was tyrannical, and he had the experience of building a teleportation array with the elders of the clan, so he could acutely sense it. Could it be that Lin Qifei was trying to build the teleportation portal alone in that cave? This sudden thought made Luo Yanlin's mind a little uncertain. This was because constructing a teleportation array was an extremely complicated and difficult task. Normally speaking, even ordinary Xian King masters only knew a little about it. Lin Qifei was actually trying this now, then what is his true strength? Judging from the situation just now, Lin Qifei should have failed. However, to be able to create such a commotion, it meant that he had at least grasped the knack of it. Luo Yanlin was a little shocked. He had always known that Lin Qifei was very talented and had a calm temperament. In the past few months since he entered the school, other than the examination at the beginning of the month and the confrontation with Jiang Ji1, he seemed to have disappeared and focused on cultivating. Why would such a person not succeed? That was why Luo Yanlin had always thought highly of him. However, it was only today that he realized that he might have underestimated him. Lin Qifei seemed to be aware of their gazes. He stood still and raised his eyes to look at them. After seeing their faces clearly, Lin Qifei's expression was magnanimous. He nodded politely at them and smiled. It's as if everything is normal. I don't feel embarrassed about being discovered. Luo Yanlin nodded and retracted his gaze. Looks like he's fine. Luo Yanming stared at him a few more times. As a Xian master, he instinctively felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't say what it was. Alright, that's all for today. You two go back and cultivate. There's still an examination when you go back home. Got it, fourth brother. Fang State City. The two sides were still in a tug-of-war. In that case, you also don't know who the person who took Chuyu away is? In the end, is it only Chuyu himself who knows? Jean Di asked coldly. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. She doesn't know either. Jean Di snorted. Who knows if she really doesn't know or if she's just pretending? Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly, but it was an extremely cold smile. If she knows, she'll definitely tell I. Do you all think that if I knew who that person was, would I still be here, talking and laughing? His voice was deep and cold to begin with. Now that his voice was slightly dragged out, there was a hint of coldness in it, making people feel a chill in their hearts. Silence. Many people looked at each other. Rong Xiu's words weren't unreasonable. Anyone could see how protective he was of that Chuyu. If he knew who bullied Chuyu and who was behind all this, with his domineering personality, he wouldn't have swallowed his anger until now. It seemed that he really didn't know. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 14-17. Elder Bo Yen came out to smooth things over. Everyone, about this matter, we want to find out the truth as soon as possible, just like all of you. After all, whether it's our Lingxiao College or Yuntian Tower, we suffered a loss this time. As for Chu Yu, he did get some opportunities, but it's not like he didn't get into any trouble. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been taken away by those people, right? He sighed. To tell you the truth, when Rongxiu rescued Chu Yu, he was seriously injured and unconscious. He has been in a deep sleep during this period of time. It wasn't easy for him to wake up recently. Otherwise, we wouldn't have locked him up in Pengmin Mountain, right? These words made many people's minds waver. Could it be, Chu Yu was taken away by the mysterious people because he entered that place alone? If that was the case, it seemed to be explainable. In my opinion, we should work together to find out the truth. After a fierce confrontation, someone finally began to compromise. Then, since Elder Bo Yan has said so, let's check it out first. I think that's fine. At most, we can wait for Chu Yu to come out and explain it to us. It's useless for us to stay here. Why don't we go back and find a way to find clues? Elder Bo Yan took the initiative to give them a way out, so naturally, some people followed suit. Originally, there were still some people who wanted to continue to argue, but seeing that the situation was not right, they chose to keep quiet. At this moment, Jean D suddenly thought of something and stepped forward. Wait. I have one last question. Everyone was quiet for a moment and looked over. Rongxiu nodded. Just say it. Jean D laughed, but there was no smile in his eyes. What I want to ask is, the sword Chu Yu used, is it the one he took from Jean Lei? As soon as these words came out, many people were surprised. In fact, the whole Divine Ruins world knew about the matter between the Golden Wings sect and Lingxiao College. Logically speaking, the people of the Golden Wings sect should be very reluctant to mention this matter in front of everyone. After all, they were completely defeated. But now, why did Jean D suddenly mention this? Elder Bo Yan's heart tightened as he looked at Rongxiu quietly. Rongxiu's expression didn't change as he lightly asked, why? So what if I am? So what if I'm not? Anyway, that thing is hers, so it doesn't seem to make any difference, right? Jean D laughed. Why not? The difference was huge. Rongxiu, that sword should be a genuine venerable artifact, right? As soon as he finished speaking, there was dead silence all around. A venerable artifact. Even in the entire Divine Ruins world, it was a top-notch treasure. It was a rare item that all the aristocratic families and clans fought over. How many years had it been since a venerable artifact had appeared in the Divine Ruins world? What is Golden Flute saying now? Chu Yu was using a venerable divine artifact. For a moment, the way everyone looked at Rongxiu changed. Although they tried their best to restrain themselves, it was still difficult to conceal the curiosity and passion in their eyes. At first, they didn't feel it, but when Jean D said this, they felt that something was wrong. When they were in the northern border of the wilderness, many had seen Chu Luwei use a sword with their own eyes. At the very least, the mysterious realm in the middle of the 9 canyons, the hard door that seemed to be forever unbreakable, was split open by him with a sword. Thinking about it carefully, it was probably a venerable artifact that could do this, right? Rongxiu looked at Jean D, his phoenix-like eyes deepened. This question was really malicious. In the silent atmosphere that seemed to be frozen, Rongxiu finally spoke. Whether it's true or not, next time let her see it personally, won't you know? The smile on Jean D's face suddenly froze. Are you threatening me? Rongxiu chuckled. Yes. Since the other party was so crafty and mean, there was no need for him to be merciful. If the sect master of the Golden Wings sect was here, he might be polite. A mere Jean D, what the hell? Jean D's face suddenly turned into a pig liver color. But it depends on her wishes. Rongxiu smiled faintly. If she thinks it's troublesome, then I can't help but do it myself. Every word and sentence was light, but it was wrapped in a thunderous momentum, which made people's hearts tremble. Jean D was so angry that he immediately went forward without care. Boom! A ball of golden flame burned fiercely in front of him. Terrible air waves rolled over, and the scorching heat made him suffer. Jianghu let out a shrill scream, and his body flew backward. Bang! His body fell heavily to the ground, making a muffled sound. The sound of bones breaking could be heard clearly, and even his face and body were full of blood. He was in a sorry state, and his aura was weak, very miserable. Everyone was shocked on the spot. No one expected that Rongxiu would suddenly attack. And the moment he attacked, he was so ruthless. The opponent was the second in command of the Golden Wing sect, Jianghu. Jianghu wanted to speak, but blood kept gushing out between his lips and teeth, choking him until he coughed. A terrifying cold aura instantly enveloped him. It almost made him unable to move. At this moment, Jianghu felt an incomparably sharp killing intent. He had no doubt that as long as he opened his mouth to say another word, Rongxiu would not hesitate to kill him on the spot. He curled up his body, reluctantly raised his head, and glanced at Rongxiu. But he saw that handsome young man, who looked like a demon and immortal, smiled slightly. In front of I, you still want to have evil thoughts about her. Do you think I am dead? Digression, I fell asleep at 4:00 yesterday, and I went crazy. Boo-hoo. At 6:00 in the afternoon, boo-hoo. The star of the monthly votes has not been verified yet, so we don't want it anymore. Boo-hoo. Mobile users, please browse and read, a better reading experience from love. Chapter 14:18. The man's voice was as cold and pleasant as ever, and there was even a casual smile at the corners of his lips. It was as if it was just a casual conversation between friends. However, at this moment, in the eyes of everyone, he was no different from the god of death who had come out of the inferno hell. Every word and sentence revealed an absolute power and dominance. It was not until now that some people suddenly remembered the identity of this man. The holy son of the Yuntian Tower. He could grow from an illegitimate child who was bullied and despised to an overlord who sat firmly on the first seat of the Yuntian Tower. How could he be a pushover? His previous polite attitude made everyone relax their vigilance, and even some of them did not take him seriously. It was not until now that he brazenly attacked, that they realized that he was indeed a master who killed without blinking an eye. Second master. Seeing this, several subordinates of the Golden Wing sect cried out worriedly and hurriedly rushed to Jianghu's side. Second master. Are you all right? How could he be all right? Jianghu was furious. Come and help me up. Although his tone was fierce, he was injured at this time and his breath was weak, so this angry rebuke did not have much power. However, the people below still did not dare to neglect, and hurriedly and carefully helped him up. Jianghu was trembling with pain. Several of his bones were broken, and when he gently breathed, his chest could not stop the pain. It was as if someone was holding a few knives and constantly stabbing inside. As soon as he stood up, Jianghu pushed the people next to him away. Go away. You blind thing. Several subordinates staggered and almost fell to the ground, but they did not dare to show the slightest dissatisfaction. They still looked at Jianghu nervously and begged for mercy, as if they were afraid of being blamed. Jianghu was angry. In front of so many people, he was beaten like this by Rongxiu. He had lost all his face. The point was that Rongxiu only used one move from beginning to end. After all, he was dozens of years older than Rongxiu. Being beaten black and blue by a young junior in public without any power to fight back, no one would feel good about it, let alone Jianghu, who had always been arrogant and domineering, looking down on everyone. But he did not dare to get angry at Rongxiu. Inexplicably, he was a little afraid of Rongxiu in his heart. He couldn't tell where this feeling came from, but it lingered in his heart and wouldn't go away. This made him more and more depressed, so he could only vent his resentment on the subordinates around him. Rongxiu. Jianghu, will remember today's account. In the end, she still had to get back some face. Jianghu mustered up her courage and angrily left a sentence. Rongxiu did not care. He had heard this many times before. However, almost no one had a chance to get back at him again. This is Lingxiao College, and I am also a student of the college. I don't want to make things too ugly here. If you all want to have a good discussion, then let's talk calmly. But if you all cross the line and offend me again, don't blame I for not showing mercy. As Rongxiu spoke, he cupped his hands at Elder Bo Yen and said apologetically, I've ruined the college grounds. I hope Elder Bo Yen can forgive me for dirtying the college grounds. The corners of everyone's mouth twitched. This man was really ruthless to the extreme. Not only did he beat him black and blue, he even stepped on his face. Yet, at the same time, he acted as if he was innocent and had no choice but to do everything. This, Elder Bo Yen coughed. Ahem. It's fine. In fact, he did not expect Rongxiu to make a move just now. He wanted to stop him, but this thought only flashed through his mind, and he ignored it. Stop what? At this time, someone had to stand up and use a thunderous method to intimidate these people. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Otherwise, they would really think that Lingxiao College and Yuntian Tower were easy to bully. Jean Di was so angry that her whole body trembled. She turned around angrily and limped away. The rest of the Golden Wing sect quickly followed. The group of people quickly disappeared. After such a commotion, the rest of the people did not have the mood to stay any longer and left. Even if they still had some thoughts about Chuyu, they knew that they could not show it now. Didn't you see that Rongxiu was determined to protect Chuyu? Lingxiao College was not to be trifled with, and Rongxiu was even more so. They could only suppress the unwillingness and curiosity in their hearts and leave. After they all left, Elder Bo Yen could not help but sigh and look at Rongxiu with a complicated gaze. Rongxiu, today's matter is all thanks to you. If Rongxiu did not stand up, those people would not know how long they would be entangled. It's what I should do. Rongxiu smiled. Moreover, I have been displeased with the people of Golden Wing sect for a long time. Today was just a warning. If they continue to push their luck, he would not let them off easily. Elder Bo Yen glanced at Rongxiu and saw the cold killing intent in his eyes. It was like floating ice and snow, and was faintly discernible. He could not help but be shocked. Rongxiu, his protection and care for Chuyu was even more shocking than expected. Even if those people treated Rongxiu the same way, he might not be so angry. Chuyu was Rongxiu's reverse scale. Elder Bo Yen recalled what Rongxiu said before. He and Chuyu, were they really brothers? He really could not tell that Rongxiu treated his family like this. He had always thought that with Rongxiu's cold and indifferent personality, he would not care about anyone. That's right, he heard that his birth mother had passed away when he was very young. Perhaps it was because of this that he was especially concerned about Chuyu. After all, if Chuyu was really his brother, then he was his only blood relative. No wonder Chuyu had always been secretive about his identity and was unwilling to say more. Thinking of this, Elder Bo Yen felt some heartache for Chuyu. You did very well. After today's matter, they should be able to stop for a while. With that, Elder Bo Yen turned and left. That's right, when Chuyu comes out from Pengmin Mountain, you should comfort him again. Don't let him feel wronged. In the end, being locked up in Pengmin Mountain was a punishment. He did not really do anything wrong, but he was locked up. It was really unfair. Rongxiu stopped in his tracks. A smile flashed past the corner of his eyes. Got it. Going to Pengmin Mountain, she shouldn't feel wronged, right? Rongxiu thought as he followed Elder Bo Yen across the barrier and returned to the academy. He looked in the direction of Pengmin Mountain. It was peaceful and calm. However, under the seemingly calm surface of the lake, there was a crazily surging undercurrent. No one knew when it would suddenly erupt and stir up a shocking storm. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 14-19. Yintian Tower. Wanzhong Mountain. On the steep and tall mountain peak, the forest was lush and full of vitality. Sunlight shone down, casting mottled light and shadows in the forest. Thick layers of fallen leaves were piled up on the ground. When one stepped on them, creaking sounds could be heard. A gentle breeze blew, and the leaves rustled. It was a rare moment of tranquility. But only when one was in the midst of it, one could feel that every blade of grass and every tree in the surroundings contained a shocking amount of power, causing one to unconsciously feel pressured. 3 figures passed through the forest and headed towards the peak of the mountain. It was 36 respected Elder Ming and the other 2. Along the way, the 3 of them didn't speak much. It was excessively quiet. 36 respected Elder Ming, who was walking at the front, had an expressionless face. Jiang Jiwan and respected Elder Yu Jing, who were behind him, were comparatively more relaxed. To be able to gain the upper hand in the dispute with 36 respected Elder Ming, they were naturally in a good mood. Needless to say, Jiang Jiwan had struggled out of that hopeless situation. Now that there was a glimmer of hope, her footsteps were much lighter. She clenched the item in her hand tightly and exhaled softly. Luckily, the clan leader had left her such a trump card back then. Now, she had already entered the Yuntian Tower, and she was going there to accompany the clan leader. Without any special circumstances, no one could casually chase her out. 36 respected Elder Ming walked in front. Even if he didn't turn his head, he could imagine what kind of proud and arrogant expression Jiang Ziyuan would have right now. He furrowed his brows quickly. He really couldn't understand what the clan leader was thinking. He actually gave such an important token to an outsider like Jiang Jiwan. Could it be that he really treated Jiang Jiwan as his own granddaughter? I wonder if the Holy Sun knows about this matter. Soon, the 3 of them arrived at the mountain peak in silence. In the middle of the mountain peak, there was a huge white jade relief. If one looked down from above, they would be able to see that it was actually a circular door. The door was engraved with the totem of the Yuntian Tower. 36 respected Elder Ming stood at the side and cupped his hands in greeting. Jiang Jiwan and Elder Yu Jing also did the same. The totem was silent. Clearly, the patriarch still had no intention of coming out of seclusion. 36 respected Elder Ming turned around and looked at Jiang Jiwan. Since you have the patriarch's token in your hands, there is nothing wrong with staying here. But from today onward, you must stay here and guard this place. Unless the patriarch leaves his closed-door cultivation, otherwise, you're absolutely not allowed to take a step out of Myriad Bell Mountain. His voice was deep and powerful, like a heavy hammer pounding on the heart. Jiang Jiwan calmed herself down and lowered her eyes. Yes. Ziyuan would definitely abide by the rules and wouldn't dare to disobey. 36 respected Elder Ming's chest felt a little stuffy. However, since things had already come to this point, it was not good for him to get angry. Thus, he did not say anything else. Elder Yu Jing's attitude towards Jiang Jiwan was much better. Ziyuan, I'll have to trouble you in the coming days. Jiang Jiwan pursed her lips and smiled. It's not hard at all. This is what Ziyuan should do. Elder Yu Jing nodded approvingly. He thought that Jiang Jiwan was finished and that the Immortal Water Mausoleum was also doomed. Who would have thought that she actually had such a trump card? The fact that the patriarch was willing to give the token to Jiang Jiwan was enough to show how much he valued her. If he could come out of seclusion quickly, he might be able to stand up for Jiang Jiwan. At that time, it would be hard to say what the situation would be like. He had a deep connection with the Immortal Water Mausoleum. Of course, he hoped that they could be well. As long as Jiang Jiwan could hold on, since you have such filial piety, the patriarch's treatment of you is not in vain. Elder Yu Jing gave a few more words of advice before leaving with 36 respected Elder Ming. The 2 of them leaped and quickly disappeared into the distance. Jiang Jiwan stared at their backs for a long while. Only when she was sure that they had completely left did the humble and respectful smile on her face gradually fade. Pfft, she snorted softly and carefully put away the token. Then, she turned around and glanced at the huge totem in the middle of the mountain peak. Patriarch, it's all thanks to you this time. She stood in place for a while to calm her thoughts. Then, she knelt down at a spot beside him. Her movements were careful and her posture was respectful. It looked like she was sincerely waiting for the patriarch to come out of seclusion. No matter who saw it, they wouldn't be able to find any fault with it. After this torment, Jiang Jiwan's many wounds split open. Her clothes were stained with blood. However, she deliberately ignored it and just let it be. Although Wanzhong Mountain had a revered status and was heavily guarded, very few people could come here normally. However, there were still many people coming and going here. Moreover, they were basically people with status in the Yuntian Tower. Since she was already here, she naturally had to fight for a good reputation. For the time being, she couldn't stay in the outside world. She had to grab onto this one and only straw. More importantly, Wanzhong Mountain's geographical location was extremely good. Staying here, she could see a lot of scenery. She could even see Duming Peak in the distance. The sacrificial god hall was on Duming Peak. It was also the holy son Rongxiu's palace. Of course, it was also the residence of the current princess consort. After kneeling properly, Jiang Ziyuan raised her head and gazed into the distance. A somewhat familiar figure suddenly flew out from the top of Duming Peak. Jiang Jiwan narrowed her eyes. That person seemed to be Yan Qing. That's right. During the time when Rongxiu returned to Lingxiao College, there didn't seem to be anyone following him around. Seeing that Yan Qing seemed to be in a hurry, what was she going to do? Jiang Jiwan looked over there and slowly clenched her fists. Sheng Guanyu, was she there too? Digression, I need to verify the people around me as soon as possible tomorrow at 12:00. I still couldn't sleep at noon today. Woo, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1420. It was said that after Sheng Guanyu became the princess consort, she had been standing in the sacrificial god temple on Duming Peak. After Rongxiu went to Lingxiao College, Sheng Guanyu focused on her cultivation and rarely came out. However, who knew if that person was still inside? In fact, Jiang Jiwan's suspicions had never been completely dispelled. She really wanted to go and find out, but unfortunately, she could only stay in Wanzhong Mountain and not leave. Moreover, there was a barrier outside Duming Peak, so she couldn't see what was going on inside. Jiang Jiwan looked around for a while and relaxed her straight body in disappointment. She was a little annoyed. Everyone was watching, so she couldn't investigate by herself. If she wanted to know the truth, it seemed like she had to find someone else to investigate. The sacrificial god temple was Rongxiu's bedroom and had always been heavily guarded. Even if there were some revered elders, they had to ask for permission from Rongxiu before they could go in. Let alone other people. Especially after she rashly barged in last time, Rongxiu was furious and severely punished the guard who let her in without permission. It was obvious that it would be as difficult as ascending to the sky if she wanted to go in now. Jiang Jiwan thought to herself. She had to find a suitable person. Jiang Jiwan's arrival caused quite a stir in Yuntian Tower. The news of her being expelled from Lingxiao College had spread like wildfire in the world of God and her reputation had hit rock bottom. Moreover, she seemed to have offended the Liang family and was in trouble. Everyone clearly knew that accepting Jiang Jiwan now would do more harm than good to Yuntian Tower. However, she still came in and really went to Wanzhong Mountain to wait for the clan leader to come out. Not only were the people below confused, but many important people in Yuntian Tower also didn't understand why the 36 revered elders and revered elder Yu Jing let her in. Because it involved the patriarch's keepsake, the two revered elders didn't announce too much to the public. Thus, after much thought, they could only understand that the Yuntian Tower was willing to do this because of the Jiang family's many years of loyalty. However, Yuntian Tower was a first-class family after all, so they didn't take this matter to heart. 2 days later, the topic gradually died down, and almost no one talked about it anymore. Jiang Ji1 stayed quietly in the myriad bell mountain, as if she had hidden herself. Red Moon Desert. In the dark night, a blood-red moon hung in the air. The faint light of the bright moon enveloped the earth, plating everything with a layer of faint crimson. Silence reigned over the vast desert. Behind a sand dune, Mu Hongyu was sitting cross-legged. Every night, the Red Moon Desert would always be very cold. Even though it looked no different from daytime, the temperature difference was extremely great. It was almost bone-chilling. Mu Hongyu's eyes were tightly shut, and a layer of white frost had condensed on her face and body. Luckily, the surrounding heaven and earth force kept flowing into her body, strengthening her aura. The surging force made her body warm up, which was just enough to resist the cold. After staying in the Red Moon Desert for a few months, she could already find this balance perfectly. Time passed slowly, and it was quiet and serene. Below the lake not far away, it was a different scene. In the dark and cramped cage, the crimson moonlight shone in from an unknown source. Those intertwining streams of light were like frost meeting fire, and they quickly melted. Within the time it took to brew a cup of tea, they disappeared without a trace. When the last ray of light that passed through his body melted, Lan Xiao finally couldn't take it anymore and fell to the ground. Dugu Mabao and Diwu Zhangzi, who had been waiting for a long time, immediately went forward. Buzz! Dugu Mabao flicked his finger, and a purple light flew out, forming a strange totem above Lan Zhao's head. Lan Zhao's body was instantly enveloped by this somewhat demonic and noble purple light. His translucent figure began to solidify. His aura also started to improve. However, at this moment, the lines on the surrounding walls seemed to have sensed something and became restless. Diwu Zhangzi stood at the side, his hands folded in front of him, and his mouth kept chanting something. The syllables were vague, as if they came from the distant and vast ancient times, sometimes low and sometimes high. It carried a power and pressure that made one's heart tremble. Under the influence of this mysterious power, the surrounding movements gradually calmed down. That purple totem also gradually lost its color and became completely transparent. Finally, it turned into thousands of light spots and merged into Lan Zhao's body. After a long time, Lan Xiao finally opened his eyes slowly. Seeing Dugu Mabao standing in front of him, he frowned slightly. Big Bao? Why are you back? Dugu Mabao narrowed his eyes. If I don't come back, I'm afraid I won't even be able to see you for the last time, right? Pfft, Lan Xiao laughed softly. Although he was still a little weak, he was much better than before. Can't you speak properly? It was clearly out of concern, but he had to make it sound so unpleasant. He caressed his face lazily and touched the shocking scar. He shook his head regretfully and sighed. What a pity. I have to wear this face for a while. Just thinking about it made him uncomfortable. He probably wouldn't be able to sleep well for a while. Diwu Zhangzi's eyelids twitched. He held it in and didn't scold him. He was about to lose his life. How could he care about that face? If he didn't know Lan Zhao's personality was like this, he would really go up and give him a good beating. Dugu Mabao said coldly. If you don't want the other half of your face to rot, stay here obediently. Some stupid things can only be done once. If you do it again, Lan Xiao waved his hand nonchalantly. Aya, what's wrong with that? Aren't I still fine? As he said that, he couldn't help but look at Dugu Mabao, and his lips curled into a sinister smile. However, there's no hope for you to speak properly. In this world, only you can stand you. At the mention of this, his voice became much gentler, with a hint of indulgence. By the way, where is she? At the mention of this, Lan Xiao looked around. She didn't come back with you? Dugu Mabao said calmly. She's at Pengmin Mountain. Lan Xiao paused, and his expression was strange. That place. Forget it. Let's not talk about her first. Why did you suddenly fight with someone? Although Lan Zhao's tone was as casual as usual, there was more seriousness in his eyes. According to their current situation, Dugu Mabao should know what kind of trouble they would attract if they fought in the Divine Ruins world. This was also why he risked his life to forcefully reconstruct his divine body after learning about this matter. Dugu Mabao was silent for a moment and briefly explained what happened in the Eldritch Wilderness North. After a short silence, Lan Xiao touched the corners of his eyes and sighed with a half-smile. So it involves Ling Xiao Academy. No wonder you're like this. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1421. Dugu Mabao's eyelids drooped slightly. His thick and long eyelashes cast a faint shadow under his eyelids, making it impossible to see his emotions. Diwu Zhangze couldn't help but sigh. Since it's already happened, there's no point in saying anything more. Let's think about how to deal with the upcoming situation. Biyao, you said that you sealed off the news? Dugu Mabao nodded. There shouldn't be any problems in the short term. Let's be careful. Diwu Zhangze pondered for a moment and said hesitantly, for safety's sake, it's better for you to continue staying in the Red Moon Desert. Don't go back to the Divine Ruins world. Dugu Mabao frowned slightly. About you, didn't you say that Rongxiu is also there? With him looking after her, I can rest assured. It was rare for Diwu Zhangze to be so insistent. Under normal circumstances, the three of them were centered around Dugu Mabao. Most of the decisions were made by him. Lan Xiao would also occasionally chime in. Diwu Zhangze was the one who smoothed things over. But now, Dugu Mabao had made a move in the Divine Ruins world. Those people would definitely find out and investigate. And Lan Xiao was seriously injured and couldn't fight at all. At such a time, he naturally had to stand up. Dugu Mabao didn't say anything. Of course, he also knew that under the current circumstances, this was the best way. But, over at Yu's side, he was still somewhat worried. I originally wanted you to bring Hong Yu with you to the Divine Ruins world, but now it seems that we have to think of another way. Diwu Zhangze stroked his beard. After spending some time together, he also liked Mu Hongyu very much. Although this little girl was young, she had a lively personality and had a tenacious spirit. No matter how much she suffered, she never complained that she was tired. With such a character, her future was limitless. If she were to go to the Spirit Firmament Academy, she would be able to accompany you. Dugu Mabao pondered for a moment. I'll send her there. The night gradually faded, and a touch of gold appeared on the horizon. Mu Hongyu slowly opened her eyes. The frost around her body quickly melted, and the surrounding temperature began to rise. The sunlight gradually brightened. Everything was the same as before. She stood up and stretched herself. In the next moment, her figure instantly disappeared from the spot. Whoosh! On another sand dune in the Red Moon Desert, a black crack appeared in the void. A slender and tall figure flashed out from within. It was Mu Hongyu. There was a smile on her face. Looks like I'm not far away from teleporting 100 miles. Senior Diwu said that as long as she broke through to the God realm, her strength would be greatly improved. I really don't know when that day will arrive, Red Fish. A familiar deep voice entered his ears. Mu Hongyu was stunned and looked up. There was no one in front of her. However, the yellow sand in front of him began to flow slowly. Senior Diwu. Mu Hongyu was a little surprised. Could it be that this was another test? Today, I will send you to the Lingxiao College in the Divine Ruins world. After you get there, you will take the entrance exam directly. You will also be there. Mu Hongyu was surprised and happy. Really? She had been waiting for this day for a long time. A stream of light flew over. Mu Hongyu hurriedly caught it with both hands, and only then did she see that it was a palm-sized jade box. She hesitated for a moment, and then opened the jade box. A roll of paper lay quietly in the middle of it. This is the map to the Lingxiao College. After you get there, just follow the route on it. Mu Hongyu wanted to pick up the paper, but when she got closer, she felt a strong pressure. There is a barrier on it, and it will automatically open when you reach the Divine Ruins world. Diwu Zhangze explained. Mu Hongyu nodded repeatedly, and looked at it curiously again. Only then did she close the box and carefully put it away. At this time, she realized that a huge Xian formation had gathered above the yellow sand in front of her. A heavy, desolate, and powerful aura gradually spread out from within. Mu Hongyu's heart trembled. Hongyu, go up. Mu Hongyu nodded and walked over step by step. The moment she stepped into this special Xian formation, she immediately felt that she was surrounded by some kind of power. But fortunately, this power seemed to be controlled by someone, and it did not affect her too much. She walked to the center. A ray of light suddenly shone into her eyes. She squinted and looked over. Only then did she see that there was a small purple scale at the center of the Xian formation under her feet. At first glance, it looked very ordinary. Only when she got closer did she realize that the purple was extremely rich and pure. Under the sunlight, it reflected a dazzling brilliance that moved one's heart. This huge profound formation seemed to be controlled by this piece of scale. Oh right, Yu has changed her identity in Lingxiao College. She is now called Shuyu. You will know when you get there. Diwu Zhangze reminded her. Mu Hongyu was a little surprised, but she still nodded seriously. Hongyu understands. Buzz. In the next moment, purple light suddenly erupted from the scale. It enveloped Mu Hongyu. Above the Xian formation, there was heavy pressure. Soon, the surrounding void began to collapse. Violent winds raged. Mu Hongyu's figure quickly disappeared. Lingxiao College. After those people retreated, the college seemed to have returned to its usual peace. Everyone seemed to have come to an agreement and did not mention this matter again. They did not even talk about anything related to the primeval north. When Yan Qing arrived at the college, he felt that the atmosphere here seemed to be different from before. He guessed that it was related to the recent events. After all, the matter had blown up so much that almost the entire Divine Ruins world knew about it. He did not ask much. After explaining his purpose to the elder in charge of guarding the barrier, he lowered his eyes and waited at the side. The elders basically knew that Yan Qing was Rong Xiu's confidant, so their attitude was very amiable. After a while, someone came to report and invited Yan Qing in. The person in charge of leading the way was a student of the college. He brought him directly to Jianghu Mountain. According to the rules, outsiders cannot stay in the college for more than a day. Please, the student was a little reserved in front of Yan Qing. Yan Qing immediately said, I know all this. Don't worry, I will leave immediately after this matter is settled. The student heaved a sigh of relief. Then I won't disturb you. Please, it was very difficult for people who were not from Lingxiao College to enter the college. However, with Rong Xiu around, Yan Qing's side was more successful. After the student left, Yan Qing looked at Jianghu Mountain in front of him. He was about to speak when the barrier in front of him suddenly opened slowly. Yan Qing flew in without hesitation. After entering, Yan Qing saw Rong Xiu playing chess in the room. He immediately knelt down and bowed. Greetings, Your Highness. Digression. There is a pinned comment event carefully organized by Doriko. Everyone, please participate. Yesterday, I was woken up at 3:00 in the morning and couldn't sleep. Today, I went crazy again. 6:00 in the evening. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1422. Get up. Rong Xiu put down a piece and looked back at him. Did you bring everything? Yan Qing got up and said quickly, Yes, I did. Yes, according to your instructions, we've prepared double the amount. As he spoke, he presented an interspatial ring with both hands. Don't worry, the materials are all the ones you picked out. Rong Xiu lifted his slender fingers and the interspatial ring flew into his hand. After probing it with his divine sense, he nodded lightly. When she came out of Mount Pengmin, she would be able to wear these clothes. But, Yan Qing, you came a day later than expected. Did something happen that delayed you? Rong Xiu put away the ring and asked lightly. Yan Qing held his breath and cupped his fists. Your Highness, I found something strange in the tomb of immortal water, so I sent people to investigate. I came late because I wanted to wait for them to report back. A light flashed across Rong Xiu's eyes. Tell me about it. Yan Qing paused for a moment, then looked up at Rong Xiu and said word by word, I found that Jianghu of the Tomb of Immortal Water seemed to be in frequent contact with an outsider. An outsider? Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. Yes. I refuse to investigate. That outsider seems to. Yan Qing hesitated for a moment, then continued. It seems to be from the Taiyu dynasty, Tan Taichen. Tan Taichen? Rong Xiu had heard of this name before. He thought for a moment, then suddenly laughed lightly. So it's him. Although he was laughing, his voice was a little cold and carried a bit of coldness. Yan Qing also remembered this Tan Taichen. Back then, Jun Zhuqing had set a trap for several major dynasties, including the Tianling dynasty, to gather in the northern underworld. Tan Taichen was one of them. At that time, he had already formed a grudge with Chu Luyue. From the clues he found, his precious daughter, Tantai Ruoli, had also died in Chu Luyue's hands at that time. Although there was no evidence to prove this, Tan Taichen had always been hostile to Chu Luyue. He had always believed this. It wasn't the first day or two that he wanted to take revenge. I don't know how he got in touch with the Mausoleum of Immortal Water. They've been exchanging messages frequently this month. Perhaps they're discussing something. Yan Qing frowned slightly, and a hint of killing intent appeared on her ice-cold face. Your Highness, do you want me to? He made a kill gesture. There was no need to worry too much about a mere emperor of the Taiyu dynasty. They could just kill him. Rong Xiu raised his hand and raised his eyebrows, showing some interest. There's no rush. I want to see what the Mausoleum of Immortal Water is planning. Thinking about it carefully, it wasn't strange that Tan Taichen would come to the Mausoleum of Immortal Water. When he had announced Chu Liyue's identity at the Yuntian Tower, he had used the name Shengguanyu. If someone investigated, it wouldn't be difficult to find out that she was from the Tianling dynasty. There was no need to think about what Tan Taichen was thinking. And the Mausoleum of Immortal Water was so close to him. Obviously, their motives weren't pure. When these two sides were together, Tan Taichen wants to kill the princess. The people of the Mausoleum of Immortal Water wouldn't know, but they're still close to him. Their intentions, Yan Qing frowned, her expression grave. The Jiang family was crazy. Were they really planning to do something to the princess? The princess was now the ruler, and they were her subjects. Their actions were simply disobeying their superiors. It was treason. However, Rong Xiu didn't seem to be angry as a faint smile flashed across his lips. Even if Tan Taichen doesn't exist, there will be others. In the past few years, the Mausoleum of Immortal Water had always been the strongest among the 28 tribes. Coupled with the clan leaders' favoritism, the Mausoleum of Immortal Water had forgotten its status and wanted to be on equal footing with the Yuntian Tower. Everything had been planned well. But now, the princess position that they had been planning for so long had fallen into the hands of others. They had no chance of ascending, so of course they were angry. It wasn't impossible for a cornered dog to do something desperate. Hearing Rong Xiu's words, Yan Qing couldn't help but ask, "What does your highness plan to do?" When I came down, Jiang Jiwan had already ascended Wanzhong Mountain. Yan Qing didn't know why 36 respected elder Ming had allowed Jiang Jiwan to enter the Yuntian Tower, but there must be a special reason. And that reason might be the reason why Jiang Jiwan dared to run to the Yuntian Tower to seek refuge at this juncture. Let her stay there for now. Rong Xiu picked up a chess piece from the jar, rubbed it in his hand for a moment, and smiled faintly. The clan leader is about to come out of seclusion. If he can see her immediately, he will be very happy. Yan Qing was shocked. She suddenly raised her head, only to see Rong Xiu's calm expression. You mean, but the clan leader didn't clap. The chess piece landed on the chessboard, making a crisp sound. Send someone to keep an eye on Jiang Ji1. Also, before I return, no one is allowed to enter the sacrificial temple. As he spoke, Rong Xiu waved his wrist. A thin piece of paper flew in front of Yan Qing. He immediately caught it with both hands. That piece of paper was completely blank. There was not a single word on it. However, it was covered with a layer of extremely faint golden light. The powerful pressure was shocking. If anyone dares to act presumptuously, take I's personal order. No matter who it is, stop them. Regardless of life or death. Yan Qing's heart trembled. Yes. Yan Qing soon came out of Jianghu Mountain. He didn't stay in the academy any longer and flew straight back to the barrier. After asking for instructions from the elder in charge of guarding, he quickly left. The whole process was straightforward and without any hesitation. Everyone only thought that he was here to report to Rong Xiu about the Yuntian Tower, and didn't take it too seriously. After a few private conversations, they threw this matter to the back of their minds. Pengmin Mountain. Inside the tower, Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged quietly. After fusing with that divine power, her aura had strengthened a lot. As time passed, she was getting closer and closer to the invisible barrier. Vaguely, she felt that as long as she lifted her foot, she would be able to step into the higher threshold. Inside her dantian, the water droplet was as calm as before. The power that was constantly gathering around it was like a tide, wrapping around it. It was as if it was only waiting for the right time to overturn everything. And the seal on the black pyramid was gradually loosening under the impact of the power. Rays of faint light came out from it. That extremely familiar feeling was constantly accumulating. It was as if it would break out at any time. On the top floor, Elder Meng had returned to his seat and sat down. At a certain moment, he suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the door in front of him. For some reason, he faintly felt that this door seemed to have undergone a subtle change. He stood up and walked to the door. He stretched out his hand and gently placed it on the door. It was slightly cold to the touch. Other than that, it was calm without any wind. Maybe I'm overthinking. Elder Meng put away his thoughts, shook his head and walked back, no longer thinking about it. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1423. After sending Jiang Ji1 to the Yuntian Tower, Jiang Hetian went straight back to the Immortal Water Mausoleum. Perhaps because of the Yuntian Tower's support, some elders who had intended to question Jiang Hetian and his daughter chose to give up. Occasionally, there were a few people who wanted to ask why Jiang Ji1 was expelled from Lingxiao College, but Jiang Hetian brushed them off perfunctorily. Of course, he could not say that he had betrayed his master and the college. Otherwise, even if Jiang Ji1 could avoid the limelight in the Yuntian Tower, she would be despised when she returned in the future. That was not what Jiang Hetian wanted to see. He had spent a lot of effort to cultivate Jiang Ji1 over the years. How could he fail so badly? Therefore, after returning, he did not slack off and had been thinking of ways to solve the current predicament. In the study, Jiang Hetian was sitting behind the desk, flipping through the memorials and letters that he had not had time to read during this period of time. When he flipped to one of the letters, his expression froze. He involuntarily sat up straight and looked around. After making sure that no one would come in to disturb him, he carefully opened the letter. He pulled out a slightly yellowed and rough piece of paper from it. A faint bitter fragrance wafted from the letter paper. Jiang Hetian took out a green jade bottle from his ring of cosmos. With a flick of his finger, the stopper fell off. A faint layer of white smoke wafted out. Jiang Hetian picked up the letter, placed it in the mouth of the green jade bottle, and smoked it with the white smoke. A few lines of handwriting gradually appeared. He stared at it and read it carefully. Immediately, his thick eyebrows furrowed tightly, and his eyes were filled with surprise and doubt. After a while, the letter suddenly burst into flames. Boom! A cluster of orange flames burned, and in the blink of an eye, the letter was devoured completely. Not even a speck of ash fell. Apart from the faint smell of burning things in the air, there was no trace of the letter. However, Jianghu fell into shock and contemplation. Sheng Guanyu. I didn't know it had such an experience. Some time ago, a man by the name of Tan Taichen had sent a letter to him saying that he knew a lot about the current princess of the Yuntian Tower, Sheng Guanyu. Initially, Jianghu was worried that the other party was up to something. However, the other party had clearly stated in the letter that Sheng Guanyu had killed his daughter and that there was a deep hatred between them. However, now that Sheng Guanyu had ascended to the immortal realm, Jianghu could no longer deal with him alone. Therefore, he had come to the tomb of immortal water, hoping that the two parties could work together. Regarding this, Jianghu maintained a skeptical attitude. Initially, he wanted to ignore it, but he was afraid that he would miss an opportunity to deal with Sheng Guanyu, so he secretly sent someone to investigate. It was only later that he realized that the other party was telling the truth. He finally believed him and replied to Tan Taichen. He hoped that Tan Taichen could tell him everything that had happened in Sheng Guanyu. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Previously, the people that he had sent to investigate Sheng Guanyu had all returned empty-handed. Until now, he still knew nothing about Sheng Haiyu. Although he didn't know how Tan Taichen had found him, it didn't matter to Jianghu. He just wanted to know how he could take down Sheng Guanyu. However, Tan Taichen wasn't completely unscrupulous. Every time he sent a letter, he would write a little about Sheng Guanyu, but he wouldn't reveal everything. This made Jianghu anxious. If they hadn't agreed to not contact each other in the real world to avoid unnecessary trouble, Jianghu would have already gone to look for Tan Taichen. Although there weren't many words in the letter, it contained a lot of information. This was because it clearly stated that Sheng Guanyu hadn't really died after being killed. She had returned to Tianling with another identity. Chu Luyue. However, Chu Luyue's background was in Empire Yaochen. That was where Rong Xiu was born. Unfortunately, the letter didn't explain how Sheng Guanyu came to possess Chu Luyue's identity. Was it possession, or, Tan Taichen also said that he had sent people to investigate Chu Luyue, but they could only find some superficial information. However, he couldn't find out anything else. Jianghu was the same. It was as if there was an invisible hand protecting Sheng Guanyu from the dark. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find anything. Could it be that the incident in Sheng Guanyu had something to do with the saint? If that wasn't the case, he couldn't figure out why Sheng Guanyu returned as Chu Luyue. If Rong Xiu really knew about all this, wouldn't it mean that he had been deeply in love with Sheng Guanyu since a long time ago? But I've never heard of this before. Jianghu slowly leaned back in his chair and fell into deep thought for a long time. How many secrets does Sheng Guanyu have? He was hesitant about Tan Taichen's last suggestion. If he really did that, he would be investigated in the future. After some time, his expression changed as if he had made a decision. He picked up the writing brush next to him, spread out a piece of paper, and began to write a letter. Lingshao College, Pengmin Mountain. It looked calm and peaceful outside. However, Chu Luyue, who was in the tower, was facing a huge impact. The force of heaven and earth quickly gathered and formed an energy vortex above her head. She closed her eyes tightly and her body was like a sponge, continuously absorbing the energy. Elder Meng had already come down from upstairs when he noticed the commotion. He stood on the second floor and looked at her with shock in his eyes. Is he about to break through? How long has he been here? Didn't he just break through to the 9th stage in the Eldritch Wilderness? Why is he, whoosh? Chu Luyue heard the sound of the energy in her body surging like waves. Every inch of her muscles, bones, and flesh was rapidly becoming stronger. There seemed to be a warm current flowing between her chest and abdomen, as if it couldn't wait to erupt. She focused all her attention and calmed her mind. She gathered all her energy and charged toward the water droplet in her dantian. However, at this moment, a crisp cracking sound was heard. Her heart skipped a beat. Daddy is in trouble. In an instant, her mind was in a mess and the majestic force in her body began to disperse. Intense pain came from all over her body and she almost fainted. Puff! Her body shook and she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. She fell to the ground. The surrounding energy was still wreaking havoc around her body. Soon, her body was stained with blood. Elder Meng saw this and suddenly opened his eyes wide and rushed down. Chu Yu. Digression, I'm not in a good state today, so I'll leave first. I'll make up for it later. Thank you for your understanding. Also, is there really no one who wants to check the surroundings? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 14:24. Elder Meng carefully helped Chu Luyue up. He saw that her eyes were tightly shut, her face was pale, and there was blood at the corner of her mouth. She looked very miserable and weak. Chu Yu? Chu Yu. How are you? Elder Meng asked anxiously and worriedly. At the same time, he pinched Chu Luyue's wrist and placed 2 old fingers on her pulse. He was just about to separate a stream of force to check the situation in her body when he suddenly felt a terrifying aura surging out from Chu Luyue's body. Boom! Elder Meng was shocked and immediately let go of Chu Luyue's hand. Chu Luyue's wrist fell limply. Elder Meng was very anxious. This kid had encountered such a mishap when he was about to break through. The force in his body had become chaotic, rampaging and wanton. In just a short period of time, it had caused quite a lot of damage to his body. If he could not control it in time, he was afraid that the injury was a small matter. The most important thing was that if this matter was not handled well, it was very likely to affect Chu Yu's future cultivation. That would be an even more troublesome matter. Chu Yu. The force in Chu Luyue's body had already gone out of control. As an outsider, Elder Meng did not dare to act rashly. He was afraid that he would accidentally make a fool of himself. In this situation, if he acted forcefully, it might cause a second injury. The best way was to let Chu Yu wake up quickly and adjust his own aura. This way, the damage would be minimized. However, no matter how he shouted, the young man remained unconscious and showed no signs of waking up. As time passed, the force in his body became even more frenzied. Chu Yu's aura also weakened. Just as Elder Meng was filled with worry, a violent energy fluctuation suddenly came from outside. He was shocked and looked up. Although he was inside the tower, his spiritual sense covered the entire Pengmin Mountain. Therefore, he was able to know everything that happened outside clearly at the first moment. After focusing for a moment, his eyes widened slightly. Rongxiu? Why is he here? Could it be that he already knew that something had happened to Chu Yu? This thought quickly flashed through Elder Meng's mind. He hurriedly raised his hand and was about to open the barrier of Pengmin Mountain. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The enchantment of Pengmin Mountain was directly split open by Rongxiu. Meng Lao's eyes flashed with horror. When did Rongxiu become so strong that he could directly open the barrier of Pengmin Mountain? Bang! Before he could figure it out, the door of the tower was forcefully opened from the outside. A tall white figure strode in from outside the door. It was Rongxiu. The warm smile on his face had long since disappeared, leaving behind only a biting chill. It was as if a layer of frost had condensed on it, and it was bone-chilling. Just a single glance was enough to send chills down one's spine. His speed was very fast, arriving in the main hall in the blink of an eye. The messy wind picked up the corners of his clothes, making them flutter in the air. Wherever it passed, it was as if a cold wind was blowing. Rongxiu. Elder Meng opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. The situation is urgent. Rong Xiu trespassed into Pengmin Mountain and was forced to do so. Please forgive me, Meng Lao. Rong Xiu's voice was low and cold. Although he was talking to Meng Lao, his pair of deep phoenix eyes were staring at Chu Luyue. There seemed to be waves in his eyes that could overturn everything at any time. Elder Meng was speechless for a moment and didn't know what to say. It was rare to see Rong Xiu like this. Was he worried about Chu Yu? While his thoughts were surging, Rong Xiu had already walked over. He lifted his clothes, knelt down on one knee, and stretched out his hand naturally. Elder Meng was stunned for a moment and subconsciously handed over Chu Yu in his arms. Rong Xiu carefully pulled her into his embrace. He used one hand to support her shoulders, and the other hand circled around her waist as he held her hand tightly. Don't. Elder Meng was just about to remind Rong Xiu that Chu Yu's body was in a very bad condition and couldn't be forcefully restrained from the outside. However, in the next moment, he was shocked to find that the raging power around Chu Yu's body was quickly restrained after meeting Rong Xiu. A few faint golden rays of light shone through the gaps between the two's tightly clenched fingers. Bright, warm, powerful. Rong Xiu silently devoured these powers and then found an opportunity to cut into his own power. The raging power in Chu Liyue's body was originally a little restless, but after meeting Rong Xiu, it didn't resist fiercely and instead accepted his aura very obediently. Rong Xiu helped Chu Liyue sort out the power in her body bit by bit until her breathing became stable. Beside them, Elder Meng was dumbfounded. What's going on? Why did he encounter so many obstacles when he was about to make a move, but when Rong Xiu helped, it became so smooth? However, seeing Chu Liyue's complexion gradually improve, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. She was cultivating in seclusion here. If something happened, how was he going to explain it when he went out? After guarding Pengmin Mountain for so many years, such a situation had never happened. The chaotic aura in Chu Liyue's body finally calmed down. Only the blood at the corner of her mouth and on her body showed that she had been hovering on the edge of danger just now. Rong Xiu picked her up and looked at Elder Meng. Elder Meng, she needs to rest now. Can you let us go up? Throughout the entire tower, every floor had a different meaning and the threshold to enter was also very different. Most importantly, except for the first floor, every floor above had a corresponding barrier that couldn't be easily opened. Only Elder Meng was in charge of all the barriers. Only he had the authority to open the barriers and let people up. Now that the first floor was filled with chaotic power and was in a mess, it was really not suitable to continue staying here. They had to find another place. Elder Meng was stunned and immediately said, Okay. There's a Millennium Frost jade bed on the second floor that can help her recover. At this point, there was no time to care about whether or not they could go up. It was more important to save her. Rong Xiu nodded. Thank you, Elder Meng. Elder Meng looked at the person in his arms again, shook his head and sighed. What's this? As he said that, he turned around and quickened his pace, going up the stairs. He waved the horsetail whisk in his hand gently. The barrier on the second floor opened. Come up quickly. Elder Meng stood on the top and waved at Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu hugged her tighter and went up. The second floor seemed to be much smaller than the first floor, but it could also be that Elder Meng didn't open the other places. However, none of this was important to the current Rong Xiu. He followed Old Meng all the way to where the 1,000-year chilled jade bed was. It was a jade bed that was dark green all over. It was crystal clear, and there were some strange runes carved on it. It was mysterious and unfathomable. Rong Xiu then carefully put her down, and his actions were excessively gentle. He took out a pill and fed it to Chu Liyue. Then, he took a jade pillow and placed it under Chu Liyue's head to help her breathe smoothly. Finally, he took out a snow-white handkerchief and carefully wiped the blood at the corner of Chu Liyue's mouth. Elder Meng watched from the side. The more he looked, the more he felt that something was wrong. Hiss, why does it seem like Rong Xiu has taken care of Chu Yu like this many times? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1425. Elder Meng felt that something was strange. Actually, it was normal for him to have such a question. Who was Rongshou? The holy son of the Yuntian Tower. He was above tens of thousands of people, wielding great power and was extremely respected. Even in the Divine Ruins world, where there were many first-rate families and sects, experts were as common as clouds, he was still the most outstanding. Such a person could decide the life and death of a person with a single word. With a stomp of his foot, the entire Divine Ruins world would tremble. In the past, when he was in the academy, he was more restrained. At most, his personality was cold and cheerless, making it difficult for ordinary people to get close to him. However, after leaving the academy, he grew and changed at an astonishing speed. He reigned in the Yuntian Tower and made everyone united. He held real power and was domineering. Over the years, countless people had died at his hands. Most of his illustrious reputation was accumulated from the blood, tears, and bones of his former enemies. Such a person should be all-powerful, cutting through thorns and thorns from the wind and thunder, bathing in holy light, and be respected by outsiders. Instead of, Elder Meng looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't find a suitable word to describe it. How should he put it? Rongshou, who was in front of Chu Yu, seemed to have become another person. He was extremely patient and gentle. He was completely different from the rumored ruthless and decisive overlord of a region. Elder Meng recalled how Rongshou had taken Chu Yu into his arms when he barged in. It was so natural, so smooth. He didn't even hesitate to kneel down. In this world, who could make Rongshou kneel down without any hesitation? And he did this only to take better care of Chu Yu and not pull on the wounds on his body. The more Elder Meng thought about it, the more shocked he became. His heart beat rapidly as countless guesses flashed through his mind. He knew that the two of them had a good relationship, and from what Rongshou had said before, Chu was very likely to be his younger brother. But he never thought that Rongshou would actually do such a thing for Chu Yu. What surprised him even more was that Rongshou's actions looked very strange alone, but when the two of them were together in the picture, it was unusually harmonious. There seemed to be a natural tacit understanding between the two. There seemed to be a subtle air current that surrounded the two of them and isolated them from the others. In that special world, only the two of them were present. No one else was able to enter it. Even getting close to it was extremely difficult. This feeling was hard to describe, but it was very strong. Elder Meng looked at them for a while and couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "It's not like I've never seen biological brothers before, but there aren't many who have such a good relationship with each other." At this time, Rongshou had put away the blood-stained handkerchief and replaced it with a new one. He carefully wiped the blood on Chu Liuyue's fingers. Just now, when the energy in her body collided, her aura was too fierce, causing many wounds to appear on her body. Fortunately, most of these wounds were small and not serious. As long as he recuperated well for a period of time, he would recover very quickly. The corner of Elder Meng's eyes twitched fiercely, and he quickly looked away. Although he had already mentally prepared himself, he still couldn't accept it when he saw Rongshou taking care of Chu Yu so attentively. "Rongshou, how is Chu Yu's condition now?" Just now, he was afraid that he would hurt Chu Yu if he forcefully helped, so he didn't even take his pulse properly. Rongshou cleaned the blood on Chu Liuyue's hands and said, "Don't worry too much. Although he is injured, fortunately, it's not fatal. As long as he recuperates well, he will be able to recover." Elder Meng heaved a sigh of relief. That's good, that's good." Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and asked worriedly, "That's right. Although this 1,000-year chilled jade bed can help him nourish his body, this is not the best place to recuperate. Should we?" Pengmin Mountain had a special status. To most students, it was a place of punishment. Whether it was the density and purity of the origin power or other things, it was actually inferior to several places outside. Rongshou paused. "Thank you for your concern, Elder Meng, but this place is good. Besides, he was just injured, and the situation is urgent. It's better to rest nearby. If he goes out now, it's inevitable that he will be seen by others. At that time, it will cause unnecessary trouble. Elder Meng thought about it carefully and felt that it was reasonable, so he nodded. Then you take good care of him here first. I'll go tidy up the door and the barrier. Rong Xiu barged in directly just now, so the barrier and the door probably had to be fixed. Rong Xiu's thin lips moved. I'm sorry to trouble you, Elder Meng. It's no trouble at all. I was also shocked when I saw Chu Yu's condition. Elder Meng said and glanced at Chu Luyue lying on the bed. Seeing that her face had a trace of color and was no longer as pale as before, his heart finally calmed down. After a few more words of advice, Elder Meng turned and left. Soon, only Rong Xiu and Chu Luyue were left here. Rong Xiu lowered his eyes, and a trace of pity flashed through his eyes. He sensed that something was wrong and immediately rushed here, but he didn't expect that he was still a step too late. Judging from her pulse just now, she should be trying to break through to the middle stage of the 9th level. Suddenly, her mind was in a mess, which caused all the power to collide chaotically and fail. Moreover, the crazy and raging power that went out of control also caused a lot of damage to her body. However, she had always been firm in her mind. He didn't know what happened to make her like this, especially at such a critical moment. It was a small matter that she couldn't break through successfully, but if it affected her cultivation, Rong Xiu's eyes were filled with dense killing intent. Someone must have used some underhanded means behind the scenes. Father, at this moment, a low moan full of pain and struggle overflowed from Chu Luyue's mouth. She was still frowning, and her eyes were closed. She looked anxious and worried. A white light flashed in Rong Xiu's heart. It's because of Chu Ning. 1,000 miles away, a boundless black wasteland. The lead gray sky was gloomy. Withered grass covered the wasteland, and a river meandered on the silent and cold land. Occasionally, a few black crows flew across the sky, letting out desolate cries. A figure was walking on the wasteland. His clothes were ragged, and he looked miserable. As he walked, many bloody wounds could be seen on his body. He lowered his head slightly, and walked forward step by step in silence. His hands and feet were covered with heavy black chains, firmly restricting his freedom. At a certain moment, he suddenly stepped on a sharp object, and an intense pain hit him. He staggered and fell to the ground. Bang! There was a muffled sound. He was wrapped in pain all over his body. He panted, and his cracked lips trembled slightly. Then, he spat out a few words with difficulty. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.